Chapter 348. Invincible Heavenly Palace, Rear Hall. A certain demon king knelt on the ground with tears all over his face, howling with grief. Exalted goddess, I really like little Hong. Please don't break us up. Exalted goddess, I was the one who seduced little Hong. This has nothing to do with her. If you want to beat me, then beat me to death. Exalted goddess, even if you kill me, I want to be with her. Exalted goddess, why don't I stop being a demon and join Invincible sect? Exalted goddess, will you allow me to marry into your family? Go. Alright, stop howling. Lone Moon really could not bear to listen to this anymore. Look at his crying and sniveling face. Did he still remember that he was the king of a realm? When did we say that you were not going to be together? Ha! Little Black paused for a moment before raising his head. Do you agree? He looked at Shining, who had already started eating and had no time to talk to him. Then he looked at Yu Hong, who had already turned her head away, her face full of, I don't know this guy. Only then did he understand what was going on. In an instant, his entire face lit up and he smiled like a fool. Ha 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 ha. I knew that the exalted goddess was the most understanding and reasonable person. She would definitely grant our wish. Xiaohei was touched. He turned around and opened his arms to Yu Hong. Xiaohong, we can finally be together. Get lost. Yu Hong kicked him, seriously suspecting that she was blind. Alright, tell me, why was your cultivation sealed and why are you hiding in your own treasure vault mystic realm? Lone Moon asked directly. I don't know who that person is. The Demon King hurriedly explained. A few months ago, I planned to bring my dowry to see Little Red. As soon as they left the demon world, that person rushed out. He insisted that I took his things and then we fought. I wouldn't have lost to him, but I don't know how he did it. My devil chi suddenly couldn't circulate, so I hid in the treasure vault. Later on, I found out that I couldn't even open the treasure trove. Then you guys came. Is the person you met the current new Demon King? What new Demon King? Blackie was stunned, as if he was completely unaware that the other party had replaced him as the Demon King. Lone Moon thought for a moment and raised his hand to summon a shadow. It transformed into the image of the person locked in the dungeon. Is it this person? It's him. Little Black immediately stood up and pointed at the shadow. He's the one who sneak attacked me. He is the current Demon King of the demon world, Lone Moon said. What? Blackie was startled and looked as if he wanted to beat the other party up. After a while, he thought of something and his anger disappeared. Forget it, I don't plan to be the Demon King anyway. It doesn't matter who becomes the Demon King. He already had Little Red, he. With this thought in mind, he glanced at Little Red beside him and his face turned red. He immediately put on a satisfied expression. Everyone. King retard. Wait, that's not right. Before his IQ completely went offline, Black suddenly thought of a question. He's not a demon, so how did he become a Demon King? He's indeed not a demon. Seeing that his IQ had gone back online, Lone Moon continued asking, think carefully. When he attacked you, did he say anything else? Or did he mention anything about his motives? Blackie thought about it carefully and then shook his head. No, he only asked me to return something to him. I don't even know him. How would I know what he was talking about? What dowry did you prepare? Shining suddenly asked. Blackie was stunned and subconsciously covered the storage bag beside him. Exalted goddess, this is what I was going to give to Little Red. With that said, he weakly leaned towards Yu Hong. The corner of Yu Hong's mouth twitched. She turned and kicked him again in disdain. Take it out. All right. Blackie opened the storage bag pitifully and took out the items one by one. There were items as big as pills, talismans, arrays and weapons as small as tables, chairs, bowls, ladles and pans. Everything that one could think of was there. In a short while, everything was placed all over the floor. Everyone, this guy must have emptied the entire demon palace. Have you ever thought about how the next Demon King would feel? That's enough. Lone Moon frowned and hurriedly stopped him from taking out the entire demon palace. What we mean is, are there any special Dharma artifacts, especially jewelry like the hairpin you gave to Yu Hong as a token of love? Blackie was stunned. Suddenly, he thought of something. His eyes lit up and he nodded vigorously. Yes. With that said, he took out a big antique box. It seemed to be very old and there were some characters carved on it that Lone Moon did not understand. He opened the box and immediately, a neat box of Dharma artifacts appeared. There were earrings, necklaces, rings and so on. There were more than 10 of them in total. This is a set. I was going to give it to Little Red when we got married and let her pass it on to our children, he said proudly. He explained the items one by one. This can be given to the eldest daughter, this is for the second daughter, this is for the third. Shut up. Lone Moon could not be bothered with this silly black who was blinded by love. He turned to look at Shining. Is this it? Shining walked over and looked at the exquisite jewelry and Dharma artifacts. With a turn of her hand, the ball of purple chi that she had taken from Yu Hong's body appeared in her palm. The moment the purple chi appeared, it was as if some mechanism had been activated. In an instant, the purple light shone brightly and the originally indistinct chi suddenly began to spin. The Dharma artifacts in Black's hands also emitted bursts of purple light. They turned into light smoke and flowed towards the ball of purple chi in Xinying's hand. The chi became thicker and thicker. In less than a minute, it became bigger and bigger. In a short while, it had gathered into a ball the size of a blue ball. Immortal chi filled the surroundings. Immortal chi that was even thicker than God power appeared. Instantly, everyone felt as if they could not breathe. Shining and the other two were still fine, but Yu Hong and Blackie seemed to be unable to withstand such a huge amount of immortal chi. They were directly forced to their knees. Shining turned and took out a transparent cube box. She slapped it on the ball. Instantly, the thick ball of purple chi was absorbed into the cube. The immortal pressure around them disappeared. What was that? Lone Moon looked confused. If not for the assistant seal that cut off their connection to this plane, he and Chef would not have been able to withstand such a terrifying amount of immortal chi. This immortal chi. Why does it seem to be thicker than God power? It was clearly just immortal chi. Shining frowned. This was the first time she had seen such a highly concentrated body of energy in this world. Master, it seems like that person's goal was this. I Ching looked into the box. Because the purple chi had disappeared, the color of the jewelry had obviously dimmed. The person who attacked Blackie and captured Yu Hong multiple times probably wanted these. Blackie, where did you get the Dharma artifacts in this box? Lone Moon asked. Blackie was stunned. Only then did he recover from the huge immortal pressure. He answered matter-of-factly, I snatched them from the Demon King. You mean the former Demon King Enchanting? The wife slave number 1 who faked her death and eloped with Cui Hua? Yes. Blackie nodded. After thinking for a while he shook his head. No, that's not right. What do you mean? Was it or was it not? The demon kings of the demon race all ascended to the throne by defeating the former demon king. Blackie explained. This thing was taken from Enchanting's treasure trove when I defeated him. It had been there for a long time. I only found it in a corner when I was cleaning it. He probably didn't even know he had this thing. So it's possible that he got it from the demon king before that. Yes. He nodded. In other words, there was no way to find out what exactly this thing was? He looked carefully at the words on the box and turned to look at I Ching. Chef, do you understand the words on this? I Ching looked carefully and shook his head. I've never seen it before. After thinking for a while he added, but there are many array formations on it. Some of them look like the divine race's concealment array. Concealment array? Was this why that person suddenly found Yu Hong and Xiaohei? Because they took the thing inside out of the box? But if even Chef, who had the inheritance of the dragon race, couldn't understand the ancient words, who else could? Could it be that this thing really belonged to the invaders? Lone Moon thought of one person and his eyes lit up. I'll go look for the God Fiend. He must know. With that said, he was about to open the God Fiend's divine realm when a disciple rushed in. Sect Master Elder. The disciple bowed to them and said anxiously, the lady in the side hall is awake. Oh. Lone Moon did not react for a moment. Where did this lady come from? The lady who came back with the elders 2 days ago. The disciple explained. After thinking for a while, he added, the lady who is pregnant. Pregnant? Jing Qi. Shit, he had long forgotten about that Chinibyu. Just look after him. They had no time to deal with him now. No. The disciple became even more anxious and said with a troubled expression, did something happen to her? What? Lone Moon was shocked. Did she run away? No. The disciple shook his head and said with a conflicted expression, he's going to give birth. There was a sudden silence. The three of them looked like they were constipated. Only Little Black, who was at the side, looked confused. He raised his hand and said, may I ask whose child is it? Shining, Lone Moon, I Ching. A moment later. Let's go take a look. Lone Moon did not expect Jing Qi to give birth so soon. It had only been a few days, not 3, right? Should they sigh and say that the spring of life really lived up to its name? This efficiency, this speed. The few of them turned and went to the side hall. Before they entered, they heard a loud scream from afar. It hurts so much. I'm going to die, it hurts so much. The few of them stopped in their tracks and found 2 female disciples standing helplessly at the door. The door was tightly shut. What's the matter? Lone Moon was stunned. Why aren't you going in? Elder. The disciple answered. She chased us out and didn't let us in. The other disciple nodded. She also said that if we dared to take off her pants she would die. And we don't know how to deliver the baby. Everyone, Lone Moon imagined the image of the 2 female disciples taking off Jing-Chi's pants. His mouth twitched and he suddenly felt a little pity for someone. For a moment he did not know whether to go in or out. He turned back and asked, "Which one of you knows how to?" Before he could finish speaking, the 4 people behind him suddenly retreated out of the courtyard at lightning speed. "Father Nyo, all the best." "You can do it, Father Nyo." Elder Lone Moon, number 1 in the sect. "Elder Lone Moon, there's nothing you can't do." The veins on Lone Moon's forehead popped. A moment later. "All of you get over here. If you want to go blind together. Don't think you can escape." Chapter 349. The few of them exchanged looks at each other at the door. The howling inside the room grew louder, accompanied by the sound of something rolling down. They had no choice but to bite the bullet and push the door open. The room was in a mess. The tables and chairs had all fallen to the ground. Jing-Chi had already rolled off the bed and onto the ground. He had completely lost his Chinibu look from before. He was covered in sweat and had a huge belly in front of him. It was several times bigger than the one he saw a few days ago. He looked extremely wretched. His eyes were bloodshot, as if he had completely lost his mind from the pain. He was still trying to hit the wall beside him. Lone Moon hurriedly conjured a body-fixing seal to stop him from hurting himself. He then used a wind elemental sorcery to roll him back onto the bed. He wanted to seal his 5 senses to reduce his pain. But it did not seem to have any effect. He howled even louder, the kind that used all his strength. Thinking about it, it made sense. If sealing his 5 senses was useful, the disciples guarding the door would have used it long ago. It seemed that the spring water might have changed his body. "Save me. Save me." Jing-Chi looked at the 4 people who came in. He did not care who they were. It was as if he was in extreme pain. Lone Moon thought for a moment. He turned to Yu Hong and said, "Yu Hong, go get a dagger and a basin of hot water." Yu Hong was stunned. She did not react for a moment. Shining asked, "Father Nyo, are we going to have a cesarean section?" "Nonsense." Lone Moon rolled his eyes. "If we don't, how will he give birth?" He made so much sense that they could not refute him. But they could understand the dagger. "Hot water? What's the hot water for?" "How would I know?" Lone Moon said directly. "Isn't that what they always do in television dramas?" Shining, I Ching, they suddenly did not want to light candles for Jing-Chi. What should they do? "Do you have any other way?" Lone Moon asked. The 4 of them were stunned. They looked at each other and nodded like chickens pecking at rice. "Father Nyo, you're right. Father Nyo, you're amazing. Elder Lone Moon, you're really knowledgeable. Elder Lone Moon, you know everything. Get lost." Lone Moon glared at the 4 of them. "Hurry and get the things." "I'll go right away." Yu Hong ran out with a whoosh. In a short while, she returned with the things that Lone Moon had instructed her to do and placed them on the bedside cabinet. "Watch him, don't let him move." Lone Moon instructed Little Black and I Ching to hold down the person on the bed, before picking up the dagger on the cabinet. He walked toward Jing-Chi and cheered himself on. It's okay. I just need to cut a knife and take out the child, then use a water spell to heal him. It's very simple. Hands, don't tremble." He took a deep breath and watched as the dagger in his hand was about to land on his opponent's bulging belly. Suddenly, a dazzling white light shone from his round belly. His entire belly wriggled as if something was about to break out of his body. Xinying's eyes narrowed. She turned to I Ching and shouted, "Chef, take red and black away from here." Chef's reaction was extremely fast. Before the 2 of them could figure out who was red and who was black, he had already rushed out with Little Red and Little Black in tow. Then Lone Moon felt his collar tighten. His entire body fell backwards. He was directly pulled behind by Xining. In the next moment, the white light on Jing-Chi's belly seemed to have a physical form as it pierced out. With a series of piercing sounds, the entire side palace was like ice that had encountered high temperature. It dissipated instantly. An unfamiliar aura spread over. Before Lone Moon could react, he felt his heart stop. His entire body seemed to be under some kind of heavy pressure. He could not control himself and was about to collapse. Shining pulled him once more. Only then did the aura disappear. The two of them immediately retreated into the courtyard. But they found that the white light inside was getting brighter and brighter. It spread in all directions. Everywhere it passed, everything began to melt. It looked like a hole was about to be formed in the Sky Palace. What is this? Lone Moon's eyes widened in shock. Shining took out a transparent cube box out of nowhere and threw it towards the white light. In an instant, the box became bigger and sealed the entire side palace inside. Only then did the strange white light stop spreading. But the room just now had completely disappeared. All that was left was a patch of white. They could faintly see Jing Qi's figure floating inside. His pig-like howling had already stopped. He was also completely motionless. Someone is coming? Shining suddenly said. What? Lone Moon was stunned. Before he could think carefully, in the next moment he saw a distortion in the air. The only figure in the white light, Jing Qi's belly, began to gather white light. As the space twisted, a faint hole appeared. And it was getting bigger and bigger. It was almost swallowing his entire body. A figure stepped out of the hole. It was a man dressed in a strange white robe. There were special patterns on it. His long golden hair was so long that it reached the ground. He had a chiseled face that looked like a statue from Western mythology. He looked up slightly and used his sapphire eyes to scan the two people in front of him arrogantly. More importantly, there was a huge pair of pure white wings on his back. He looked like a god from Western mythology. A new invader. Lone Moon's heart clenched. Before he could react, the other party suddenly spread his wings and flew up. The dazzling white light appeared again. In the next moment, an ethereal voice spread throughout the entire Sky Palace. Lost creatures from a different world, I am the highest god, Light. I have come to bring you out of your suffering. Offer your humble heart and become my servant. Light will always shine on you. Lone Moon, Shining, so this was a late-stage Chinibyu? Straight Face, the fellow who called himself the god of light, did not seem to feel their hearts full of curses. He maintained his holy and noble appearance and continued to transmit the heavenly voice with his head slightly raised. Dirty creatures from a different world. Your existence is the original sin. Evil has already corroded your souls. Only light can guide you forward. Kneel down and repent for your sins. I am the most benevolent God. Become my follower and this world will be like the world under my protection. You will be bathed in light. The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. Which outdated Western fantasy novel did he get this kind of line from? I say, what on earth are you, foolish sinners? The other party interrupted him and continued, only by seeking refuge with the light can you wash away your sins. Otherwise you will fall into hell forever. Come, offer your soul and loyalty. From now on, I am the only God in this world. Before he could finish speaking, a huge sword suddenly fell from the sky and smashed into his body with a clang. It directly slapped him down from the sky and made him gnaw on the ground. Following that, another wave of sword rain fell. The pretentious god was rooted to the ground. Chef, who had returned at some point, landed from the sky. He raised his leg and stepped on the man's body. The man who had just gotten up was trampled back into the mud. Shining, Lone Moon, Straight Face, what a weak god of light. So those white lights just now, were they really just for showing off? Wait a minute. Chef, what are you doing? Why are you holding a knife? Lone Moon hurriedly ran over. You can't cut that pair of wings. The other party is an invader. Can you control your urge to look for ingredients? The kitchen knife in Chef's hand paused. He frowned and put it away. Then he silently summoned a deviant fire. You can't roast it either. I Ching finally let go of his hand with a look of pity. Shining sighed. What a pity. Pity my ass. Lone Moon glared at her. Wasn't it all because of you? He felt that ever since Chef went down to the lower realm, his habit of sparing no effort to stock up food for Shining had become more and more serious. Explain what exactly is going on. Lone Moon glanced at a certain weak god who was still buried in the mud. Who exactly is this idiot? Shining also poked the person who had already fainted on the ground. Then she answered, he should be the manager of the world of Chinibyu. Lone Moon, I Ching, what? Chapter 350. Invincible Heavenly Palace, Main Hall. Lone Moon sized up the figure in front of him, who was glowing with white light and had special effects. He couldn't react. He had seen many managers like Shining and her sister, but he didn't expect that there would be such a weakling among them. You are blaspheming the gods. The stupid god who had just woken up wiped the mud off his face and said angrily, You are disrespectful to me. You will forever be despised by the light, punished by the darkness, tortured by your souls, and, swoosh, before he could finish, Chef pulled out the sword in his hand. The other's face paled, and he swallowed back the sentence he was about to say. You want to kill a god? We didn't want to. Lone Moon looked at him and said, But if you don't speak properly, we don't mind killing you. Lone Moon finally understood where Jing Qi's delusional confidence came from. With a manager like this, it was hard not to be delusional. Tell me, what are you doing in this plane? Plane? He looked confused. What plane? Stop pretending. Lone Moon pointed at Shining. She is the manager of this plane and we are her assistants. Manager? The stupid god became even more confused. He raised his head and glanced at Shining. What kind of god is a manager? Lone Moon paused. This situation wasn't right. He turned and pulled Shining, who was sitting on the chair beside him. What's going on? Didn't you say he was a manager too? Was there a manager who didn't know his own duties? Shining was stunned. After a while she said, He is not only a manager, he should be the unawakened world consciousness of that plane. Perhaps he didn't even realize the meaning of his existence. Every plane manager exists in a different form. In other words, apart from big shots like Shining, there were also managers like this who didn't even know what a plane was? Lone Moon frowned and looked at him sympathetically. How did you get here? What's your purpose? I am here because of the call of my believers. He looked up, and the white light on his body became even brighter. He didn't seem to be illiterate at all, and his face was holy and inviolable. I sense that your faith here is too weak, so I personally came to spread the gospel. Foolish living beings, you should feel honored. The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. Keep your drama to yourself. Don't you know this is called a plane invasion? What invasion? This is the blessing that this god has bestowed upon you, he said with a righteous expression. I don't care what you want. Our plane doesn't welcome you. Lone Moon frowned. Since you're the manager, bring your followers back. As he spoke, he immediately formed a hand seal. In an instant, the shadow of a fatty with closed eyes appeared in the room. It was Jing Qi. When the Chunibyu came over just now, his otherworldly soul had separated from his body. The Chunibyu god looked at the fat soul with disdain. Who is this? Your father. Lone Moon rolled his eyes. After all, he was born from his mother's womb. I am an overgod born of the light. He took a step back, clearly not intending to accept Jing Qi. Besides, I came here to spread the gospel. Before the living beings of this world return to the embrace of light, I will not leave. So you want to stay here for a long time? Lone Moon sneered. The god of light glanced at him with an expression of bestowing grace. I grant you the honor of serving me. Lone Moon was so angry that he almost laughed. This was the first time he had seen someone speak shamelessly in such a fresh and refined way. Teach him a lesson. With a swoosh, I Ching took out a kitchen knife and said seriously, I only want the wings. With that said, he walked over. The stupid god's face turned pale, and his arrogant expression crumbled. He took a step back subconsciously. Wait, what do you want? You will be punished for being disrespectful to the gods. Stop. I Ching turned a deaf ear to him and pressed him to the ground with a wave of sword chi. He picked up his wings with one hand. Yes, there were two of them. One was roasted and the other was fried. Just right. Seeing that the other party's sword was about to fall, the Chunibyu god screamed, I'll tell you. I'll talk, okay? I Ching finally let go, a look of pity on his face. He had only plucked half of the wing's feathers. The Chunibyu god crawled up from the ground. His arrogant expression was now pitiful as he hugged his half-bald wings and curled into a ball. I did feel the summoning and I also sensed the aura of the spring of life. That's why I came over. He explained in a low voice, the spring of life gives birth to all living things, but the spring of life in our world suddenly disappeared. If this goes on, no one will be born in our world, so. You're here for the spring? Lone Moon thought of the spring of pregnancy. Yes. He nodded weakly. The spring of life is the source of a world. Unless I find it, even if you eat me, I will not leave. Lone Moon and Shining exchanged a look. Shining then took out the cube containing the golden spring water. You mean this? The spring of life. The Chunibyu god's eyes lit up. He was so excited that he wanted to rush over, but he glanced at I Ching, who was holding a knife, and shrank back weakly. His eyes, however, were fixed on the box in Xinying's hands. Xinying waved her hand in the air. Instantly, the air twisted and a white passageway appeared. They could faintly see a golden building inside, filled with the aura of a Chunibu. Here. She tossed the box containing the spring water to him. This is for you. Go back. Don't come any closer. For the sake of your IQ. The Chunibu god paused. He looked at the spring of life in his hands, then at Xinying. You're really giving it to me? Yes. Xinying nodded. The Chunibu god still looked incredulous. All right. Go back once you find it. Lone Moon pulled Jingqi up from the ground and pushed him towards the plain passageway. He conjured a seal and condensed Jingqi's soul into a ball of light. He shoved it to him. Take care of your believer. The Chunibu god, who had obtained the spring of life so easily, was confused. He did not expect them to be so easy to talk to. They had just threatened to eat his wings. He felt a warmth in his heart. He looked at the three of them, then at the spring water in his hands. His eyes were filled with gratitude. He opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something. After a while, he took a deep breath and said seriously, I've decided to bless you. Be grateful, stupid, Aya. Get lost. Before he could finish, Lone Moon's mouth twitched. He kicked him into the door. MDZZ. Chapter 351. In the next moment, a white light flashed and the figure disappeared. The plain passage closed up and the sky returned to normal. Lone Moon heaved a sigh of relief and turned to Xinying. According to what he said just now, why do I feel that Jingqi and this stupid god came here by accident and did not invade this plane of their own accord? Indeed not. Xinying nodded and turned to sit back down. She picked up the fruit on the table and took a bite. Then what's going on? Lone Moon asked. Don't they have to get your permission before they can enter the plane? Just like the pass that Xinjing gave them back then. Otherwise, if they forced their way in, they would definitely be repelled by the plane, just like how Chef lost half his life. But of the two people just now, Jingqi was a soul, and the stupid god was able to come here without any obstruction at all. At first, he thought it was because he was a manager and was very powerful. But that weak manager could not even beat Chef. Obviously, he did not have the ability to resist the power of the plane. Then how did he come here safely? Lone Moon could not figure it out. Was the plane repelling a holiday today? Maybe he did not even pass through the plane door? Xinying said. Lone Moon paused and even I Ching looked over. What do you mean? Xinying finished the fruit in her hand and turned to the two. There seems to be a loophole in our plane. I Ching, Lone Moon, the two of them were stunned. Before they could understand what she meant, the ground under their feet suddenly shook. Not far away, there was a loud boom that spread through the entire sky palace. Suddenly, there seemed to be some huge energy sweeping over from afar. Even the immortal chi around them seemed to be much thicker. The three of them were shocked. They hurried out of the hall and released their divine perception. They could faintly see a pillar of light in the distance. It was so bright that it was blinding. What was that? That direction is the demon world. I Ching's eyes widened. Lone Moon was stunned too. The immortal chi in that pillar of light was shocking. How could there be such thick immortal chi in the demon world? Sect Master Elder. Just as they were thinking, Yu Hong suddenly rushed in and looked at them anxiously. Something happened to Little Black. Lone Moon was shocked. What happened to him again? I don't know either. Yu Hong became even more anxious. She didn't know how to describe it. Bring us there. Yes. Yu Hong then turned around and led the three of them to the side hall at the back. As soon as the three of them entered the room, they saw Xiao Hei lying on the bed with a pained expression. His face was pale and his body was covered in sweat, as if he was suffering from great pain. More importantly, there were traces of black smoke-like gas continuously drifting out from his body. Lone Moon directly went forward to check, and his expression became even more shocked. The demonic chi on his body is dissipating. Even his cultivation was unstable. What just happened? Yu Hong shook her head. No, we haven't left since Elder I Ching sent us back. Lone Moon frowned. Little Black was a demon. He could not tell what was going on. Go get Boss Lan. Just as she was about to ask her to call Lan Hua over, Siyu suddenly rushed in. Sect Master, this is bad. Celestial Emperor Lan Hua. Before Siyu could finish speaking, she saw Little Black in the room and was stunned. Why is he also? Something happened to Lan Hua as well? Lone Moon asked. Siyu nodded. He suddenly collapsed in the middle of refining pills. What a coincidence. Something happened to both of them at the same time? The few of them hurried to Boss Land's room. Lone Moon checked his meridians and found that he was in the same situation as Little Black. The demonic chi in his body was dissipating for some unknown reason. In fact, it was more serious than Little Black's. Lone Moon could not figure out what was going on. He could only seal the two of them with an array to prevent the demonic chi from dissipating. What happened? Why did something happen to them? Where are the 10 sky fiends waiting in the guest hall? I Ching suddenly turned to look at Yu Hong. Go and see if anything happened to them. Yu Hong hesitated. I'll go right now. She hurriedly turned and ran out. A moment later she flew back. Elder I Ching, those sky fiends are in the same state as them. They suddenly collapsed. We've already sent disciples to look after them. In other words, only the demons are in trouble? Lone Moon's expression darkened. He exchanged a look with I Ching. Could it be the effect of that pillar of light just now? That pillar of light could restrain demons? Look after them. Lone Moon instructed. He turned to Shining and I Ching. Let's go to the demon world to take a look. The three of them mounted their swords and flew in the direction of the demon world. In a short while they arrived at the edge of the demon world. The demon world, which was originally filled with demonic chi, was now as bright as day. Right in the center of the demon world, an eye-catching pillar of light shot up into the sky. The white light shone across the entire demon world. Everywhere it went, the demonic chi dissipated. The pillar of light was like a purifier, purifying all the demonic chi in the demon world. The strange thing was, apart from the demonic chi, it did not affect the immortals at all. Lone Moon could even feel the immortal chi in the pillar of light. Just as they guessed, along the way they saw many demons like Lan Hua and Little Black. They were all lying on the ground in pain. There was no exception. Especially those demons with low cultivation levels. They did not even have a complete physical body. Once the demonic chi dissipated, even their bodies began to dissipate. If this continued, the entire demon race would probably disappear in the light. Lone Moon's heart sank. He sped up and flew to the side of the pillar of light. Only then did he realize that the position of the pillar of light was actually Little Black's demonic palace. The entire demonic palace was lit up by a huge array. The array was very strange. It was layered as if it was made up of tens of different arrays. The golden talismans surrounding it were also very complicated. They could not understand what they meant. Chef, can you tell what array this is? I Ching shook his head. I've never seen it before. Then he directly summoned an immortal sword. No matter what array it is, let's break it first. With that said, he waved the sword in his hand. Instantly, thousands of sword chi appeared and attacked the array. Lone Moon also summoned his immortal sword and cooperated with Chef to attack the array. Although he did not know who set up the array and what the purpose of doing this was, if this continued, the entire demon world would really be finished. In a moment, the densely packed sword light attacked the array. The strange thing was that there was no reaction at all. Whether it was the sword chi or the immortal chi, they directly passed through the array. They only destroyed the demonic palace below, and did not affect the array at all. Instead, the light in the pillar of light seemed to become even brighter. This pillar of light can absorb immortal chi. Lone Moon reacted. Attacks using immortal chi are useless against it. Chapter 352. I Ching reacted as well. He changed the sword technique in his hand, and a strand of blue god power wrapped around the immortal sword in his hand. He directly released his sword intent to form a huge dragon that flashed with blue light. He waved his hand, and the huge dragon charged straight towards the layers of array formations. In the next moment there was a few cracking sounds and the array broke apart. Even the pillar of light dimmed, and became many times smaller than before. It works. Lone Moon was delighted. He adjusted his cultivation level to the divine level, and used his god power to form sword chi. He attacked again. The array below was collapsing even faster. In less than half an hour the array had completely collapsed. The pillar of light in the middle was gone, and the thick immortal chi in the surroundings also disappeared. Lone Moon heaved a sigh of relief. He was about to check on the other demons when I Ching suddenly exclaimed, "Look, the ground." He looked down and saw that the ground where the pillar of light had disappeared, suddenly as if there was an earthquake. A huge white crack appeared, and the entire demon palace collapsed. The crack became wider and wider, spreading in all directions like a spider web, as if it was going to tear the entire demon world apart. What is this? Lone Moon was shocked. He could feel a huge suction coming from the white crack. It did not look like a crack in the ground at all. It was like space was being torn apart. Plain crack. Shining, who had been silent all this while, suddenly spoke. What? Lone Moon was shocked. Shining directly pulled out a light screen, and as she scrolled through the data on it she said, "This plane has cracked open. But the crack is not big. At most, it will swallow the entire demon world." You call this not big, huh? No wonder the array just now was broken so easily. So this was the trap. How do we deal with this thing? Lone Moon asked. You should know, right? Just patch it up. Nonsense, I'm asking how to patch it up. I think I have tools. Wait. Shining dug into the storage bag beside her and took out something. She handed it to the two of them, one in each hand. Use this to patch it up. Lone Moon looked down, and saw that there was a square piece of cloth in his hand. There was even a drawing of little grass on it, a band-aid. Flip's table, to hell with the band-aid. It's such a big crack and you want me to use this? Wait, chef, where are you going? Before he could complain, I Ching had already taken the band-aid and flew down without hesitation. Holy shit, you're really? He was about to stop him when he saw a beam of light fly out from Chef's hand. His vision blurred, and a huge band-aid that spanned across the entire demon palace appeared before his eyes. It immediately covered the crack on the ground and sealed half of it in an instant. Lone Moon, is this AF * King band-aid? This is XXXXX, right? Father Nyo. I Ching turned back and urged him. The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. He took the band-aid and flew to the other side of the crack. Indeed, the next moment the other band-aid in his hand flew out. It grew bigger instantly and covered the other part of the largest crack. In less than a quarter of an hour, the white cracks on the ground disappeared. Even the smaller cracks in the surroundings slowly closed up. The white light slowly disappeared, and the ground returned to its original state. Lone Moon, it's done. Shining said. What exactly is that band-aid? Why can it become so big? Father Nyo glared at her. It's not a band-aid. Shining tilted her head. Then what is it? A plane restorer, Shining answered. After some thought, she added, my older sister gave it to me. Why didn't you say so earlier? I thought. You dare to say that I know. Believe it or not, you won't be able to eat from tomorrow onwards. Lone Moon glared at her. Father Nyo was so fierce. After that strange beam of light disappeared, all the demons recovered. Although they lost their demonic chi and their cultivation level regressed, their lives were not in danger. Yu Hong had also sent a message that Lan Hua and Little Black had recovered. Lone Moon walked a few rounds around the destroyed demon palace. He did not find out how the array that could open the plane crack appeared. That thing seemed to appear out of thin air. There was no aura of an array nearby at all. Chef, did you see anything? He turned to look at I Ching. He was most sensitive to auras. There's nothing here except the immortal chi that hasn't dissipated. I Ching shook his head and frowned. He seemed to have thought of something. He looked at his wristband and asked Shining, Master, is the plane crack just now a plane crisis? Shining looked at him and nodded. Yes. But, why isn't there an alarm? He pointed at the wristband on his hand. All right. Lone Moon also thought of this problem. He looked at his hand. There was an alarm when Shinibu came over. Now that the beam of light was so obvious, why didn't it sound? Is this alarm broken? The plane alarm can only provide an immediate warning. Shining said. It's something that happens after we take over the plane. In the future, I Ching was shocked. His eyes widened. Master, are you saying that this plane crack might have existed a long time ago? Shining nodded. But we just saw it crack. Lone Moon looked confused. What's more, such a big crack, who could hide it? This is the demon world. How could so many demons not notice it? Could it be? He stopped mid-sentence, exchanged a look with I Ching and said in unison. Godfiend. Such a plane crisis could only be remedied by the manager. If this crack had existed a long time ago, then the only ones who could hide it temporarily were the three ancient gods. The demon world was the Godfiend's territory. He could not ignore it. That was why no one in the demon world had noticed it for so many years. The only possibility was that the Godfiend had hidden it himself. Speaking of which, such a big thing happened in the demon world. Why didn't the Godfiend come to greet them? The last time Jing Qi invaded, he hurriedly came to call for help. Why was there no movement this time? Lone Moon's expression darkened. He drew a line in the air and opened the entrance to the Godfiend's divine realm. Let's go ask him what's going on. Instantly, an entrance appeared in the air. The three of them walked in. They thought they would see the familiar blue sea and blue sky, but they only felt their vision go black. The next moment they were already in darkness. I Ching subconsciously summoned a ball of fire. But he could only see water flowing around him. With a thought, the fire turned into a fireball. It rose into the air and lit up the entire space. Chapter 353. Only then did the three of them see clearly that the entire divine realm had turned into a gray area. It was as if the colors had suddenly been removed, leaving only the two colors of black and white. The originally blue sky above their heads was now like broken glass, cracking and disappearing inch by inch. The originally vast divine realm was now reduced to a radius of a few miles. The rest had turned into nothingness. What's going on? Lone Moon looked at the scene in front of him in shock. This place is about to collapse. I Ching stepped forward and released his divine perception. He carefully sensed the aura around him before turning back. The God Fiend is not here. This was the God Fiend's divine realm. It was like his personal mystic realm. Nothing could go wrong easily unless something happened to him. This divine realm is connected to the demon world. If it continues to collapse, it will definitely affect the demon world. I Ching reminded him. He turned to Lone Moon and said, "I'll go to the right side and set up a 5 elements array." Lone Moon reacted and nodded. "Alright, I'll set up the array here." The 5 elements array could draw in the chi of the 5 elements. This array was needed to open up a mystic realm. It was the only way to stabilize a mystic realm. The two of them cast their spells at the same time. For a moment, a large white light of the array lit up. The rapidly dissipating scene slowly slowed down. But there was a series of crisp cracking sounds in the sky. The cracks became more and more serious. This was the God Fiend's divine realm after all. It did not match the aura of I Ching and Lone Moon. They injected their power into it, but it accelerated the collapse. Aya, it's going to collapse. Shining looked up at the sky that was broken like a spider web. Collapse your ass. Help. Lone Moon glared at her. He had no idea what to do. Shining tilted her head and looked at her own hands. With a twist of her hands, she made a hand seal that was exactly the same as the others. For a moment, Lone Moon felt something rushing towards him. A golden array appeared under Xin Ying's feet. In an instant, it spread to the entire divine realm. Wherever it passed, the space that had been faintly fragmented was instantly renewed as if it had been changed into a new picture. Even the originally blue sea and blue sky had transformed into a lush, vibrant green land. The god's domain felt even larger than before. Holy shit. Lone Moon stared at everything in front of him in shock. He turned to Shining. You know the 5 elements array. No way. Then just now Did she think he was blind? That was obviously a 5 elements formation, and it was the ultimate enhanced version. Oh, I just learned it from you. Just now. Did it have to be so fast? Didn't you say you needed my help? Mother asterisk her. Your podium. The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. Chef had already flown back looking confused. Master. Why do I feel that there's no God Fiend aura in this divine realm? Oh, I might have accidentally covered it. What do you mean? Lone Moon asked. It means... Shining pondered for a moment before answering. It means that the ownership of the land has been transferred. The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. So now this place is my god domain. Lone Moon, I Ching, are you sure you're here to help and not to demolish? The demonic god will cry when he returns. He definitely will. The matter has been resolved. Shining scanned the scene and clapped her hands. Shall we go home for dinner? Yes, master. Chef immediately opened the exit to the rear hall of Invincible Sect. What? Hey. Lone Moon pointed in front of him. Leaving just like that? What about the God Fiend? It's obvious that something happened to him, right? Master and I Ching exchanged a look and tilted their heads at the same time. And then? And then of course we have to think of a way to save. Lone Moon paused and his mouth twitched. As if recalling something, he cursed under his breath. Shit. The anxious expression on his face softened. He turned and was the first to walk out. Home for dinner. The moment he thought that the one who suffered was the God Fiend, he instantly felt no pressure at all. The three of them did not feel anything. They even wanted to give the kidnappers a thumbs up. Chef, let's add 2 more dishes to celebrate tonight. We can add more dishes, but we don't have enough ingredients. Double the food allowance this month. Yes, Father Nyo, no problem, Father Nyo. Regarding the Pillar of Light, Lone Moon initially guessed that it could be the work of the immortals who hated the demonic world. It was obvious that they were aiming to wipe out the demonic world in one fell swoop. But the plain crack that appeared later made him suspicious again. And the relationship between the immortals and the demonic world now was more harmonious than he had imagined. They even saw many immortals in the demonic world just now. Most of them were helping the injured demons and not killing them all. Especially that special immortal chi. He had never seen immortal chi that was even richer than god power. According to Shining, that plain crack had existed before they took over the plane, and the one who temporarily sealed it could be the god fiend. Lone Moon finally understood what Shinjing meant when she said that there were still many traps waiting for them in the plane they took over. This was obviously a trap. Now that the god fiend was gone, the only possibility was, what plane crack? Meng Pe, who was suddenly pulled over, was stunned. Her face was blank. You don't know? Lone Moon was shocked. I don't know. Meng Pe shook her head. The god fiend never tells me anything. And the demonic world was created by the god fiend. I don't go there often. The god fiend is gone. Do you know that? Lone Moon asked. What? Meng Pe was shocked. What? We don't know the details, but the divine realm has been destroyed. Lone Moon continued. Didn't you go back to take a look? No, I broke off all ties with him the last time. She seemed to have thought of something and snorted. Although the god fiend is in charge of order, we have the sect master now. It doesn't matter whether he's around or not. Meng Po's nervousness lasted for 0.1 seconds. She waved her hand, not caring at all. Instead, she turned around excitedly and took out a bag. Looking at Shining, she said, Sect Master, I found many delicious things in the lower realm this time. Do you want to try them? She then took out a bunch of vegetables and fruits from the bag. Lone Moon, I Ching, Shining, they were the three ancient gods after all. What happened to the love between colleagues? All right, we got it. Seeing that she was taking out more and more things, looking like she wanted to fill up the whole yard, Lone Moon had to stop her. Go back to the underworld first. We will continue investigating the matter in the demonic world. Oh. She nodded but did not leave. Is there anything else? Lone Moon asked. She looked at Shining and said hesitantly, Sect Master, before I go back, can I go see Master Qingyu? She had not seen her for a long time. Shining was stunned. After a while she nodded. Yes. Thank you, Sect Master. Her expression lit up. Then, as if relieved, she turned and flew towards the side hall. Even Meng Pe doesn't know. Who on earth wants to destroy the demonic world? Lone Moon sighed. He could not figure it out. Where did the special immortal chi come from? Why don't we ask the one who snatched the dowry? Shining suddenly said. Snatched the dowry? Lone Moon was stunned. You mean that new demon king? Only then did he remember the person in the dungeon. Could it be that this has something to do with him? He thought of the purple chi and turned to walk towards the dungeon. After a few steps he turned back and pulled Chef and Shining. Let's go together. Don't even think of slacking off. The three of them flew all the way to the dungeon. Before they got close, Lone Moon felt the faint aura of an array. His heart tightened. They rushed in. Indeed, the person inside was gone. In the next moment, Lone Moon felt his hand go numb. The three of their wristbands suddenly made a series of beeping sounds, one after another. Almost instantly, a huge light screen marked with exclamation marks appeared in front of them, filling up their entire vision. The three of them, this is a plain warning. For a moment, the three of them seemed to hear the sound of a deep pit approaching. Chapter 354. What's going on? Lone Moon looked at the alarms that popped up all around them. There were almost 100 of them. Why are there so many? Return to the divine realm. Shining said in a low voice and tapped on her wristband. Lone Moon felt his vision blur. In the blink of an eye, they had already returned to a vast and boundless space. But it was different from the green mountains and clear waters just now. The divine realm now was like a starry sky. The surroundings were dark and a large number of stars appeared in front of them, like the Milky Way. This is the divine realm? Lone Moon was shocked. Why was it different from just now? Oh, this is studio mode. Shining said casually. The divine realm was divided into modes. So you not only occupied the God Fiend's territory but also renovated it? Oh. Shining directly brought up a light screen. He did not know what she did. Instantly, the stars in front of them grew bigger and bigger. In a short while, they became translucent light beads the size of rubber balls. They surrounded the surroundings. On them, one could faintly see the shadows of mountains, seas, and lakes. These are the 3,000 realms. Lone Moon was shocked. He went forward to take a closer look. Indeed, Every light ball was the scene of a world. Could it be that this starry sky was the main body of the entire plane? Xining directly drew 2 lines on the light screen. Those light balls instantly disappeared by more than half. Only a few flashing red lights were left. Master, are these the lower realms that just sounded the alarm? I Ching glanced at those light balls in front of him. Xining nodded. So many. Lone Moon glanced at those remaining light balls. There were at least a few hundred of them. Looking closely on those balls, one could faintly see the shadows of white cracks. These lower realms all have plain cracks? More than 90%. Xining answered. There were still some unknown reasons. Lone Moon's brows instantly furrowed into a dead knot. How much time do we have? Not necessarily. Xining operated the light screen. A row of data flashed in front of her eyes. After a while, she pointed to a light ball and said, for example, this one will collapse in half an hour. So fast. Lone Moon was shocked. Then we have to fix it as soon as possible. Alright, your band-aid. Pui plane repairer? Do you still have it? I do. Xining took out a bunch of band-aids. But there's no need to rush. There's no hurry. Lone Moon continued. If this goes on, the 3,000 realms will collapse. Now is not the time to be lazy. Lone Moon said with a serious face. Actually, let's split up. You go for the dozens of chefs on the left, Xining on the right, and leave the rest to me. Father Nyo, there's no room for discussion. I'll go to the one that's collapsing the fastest. Without waiting for her reply, he tore through the void and went to the one that was collapsing the fastest. Xining? As long as you're happy. I Ching stepped forward and looked at Xining calmly. Master, do you have any instructions? Xining glanced in the direction where Father Nyo had disappeared inside. Chef, call Radish over. Yes, Master. At this time, Lone Moon had already reached the lower realm. He turned his head and looked around. This was a mortal world, and the spiritual energy here was so thin that it was almost non-existent. That was why the plane crack here was the most serious. Different from the plane crack in the demon world, the one in the lower realm appeared in the sky. When Lone Moon arrived, he saw that the entire sky had already split in half. The originally clear sky seemed to have been torn apart, and a huge crack stretched across the entire sky. In the middle of the crack, all kinds of strange auras kept surging in with a threatening aura. Everywhere it passed, everything turned into nothingness, and the ground shook as if it was about to collapse. Lone Moon's heart tightened, and he directly threw the plane repairer in his hand out. He saw that the band-aid instantly became bigger, and directly flew towards the crack in the sky. In an instant it covered more than half of it. But that crack was really too big. Not long after the repairer stuck on it, it seemed to be about to break free, and a crack even appeared directly from the edge. Could a repairer not be able to repair it directly? Lone Moon's heart tightened and he hurriedly threw out 2 more, covering the thin flap next to it. But the cracks in other places were increasing. He had no choice but to throw a few more before completely sealing the plane crack. The surrounding shaking stopped, the patch-like band-aid in the sky slowly merged with the plane, and in a short while, it became a clear sky again. Lone Moon then heaved a sigh of relief, and looked at the remaining 2 plane repairers in his hand. Fortunately, Xining had given him more, otherwise he might not have been able to seal this crack. Thinking about it, there were still hundreds of such cracks and his heart instantly sank. He didn't know if the repairer in Xinying's hands was enough, so he turned and directly returned to the divine realm. Xinying's repairer. Before he finished speaking, his whole body suddenly stiffened, and his face instantly darkened. He thought that he would return to that starry sky, but in front of him was a stretch of green mountains and clear waters. The light ball of the 3,000 worlds had disappeared, and in its place was a wide grassland, and on the grassland, there was a huge western dragon propped up high. There were even a few excited discussions in front. Chef, is the whole roasted dragon really delicious? I tested it before. This pseudo-dragon meat after roasting is oily but not greasy, it is extremely tender, Master will definitely like it. But the skin is so thick, can it be roasted well? Don't worry Master, I will roast it with the true phoenix fire, every part will be evenly heated, it will definitely be thoroughly cooked. Don't do it fully cooked, 70% will do, the taste will be better. Yes Master, no problem Master. Lone Moon. He faintly felt something in his mind snap, and suddenly had an urge to publish a newspaper to break off all relations. He took a few deep breaths and said in a deep voice, "What are you guys doing? I am exhausted and you guys are actually barbecue here. Could this plane still have fun? A degree, a degree. Only then did the two realize that the person who had left and returned. Shining waved a hand in greeting. Hey Father Nyo. She pointed to the huge dragon in front of them and said, want a piece? Come your ass. Lone Moon was a little mad. You guys are still in the mood to roast meat, what about those plain alarms? Do you know that the lower realm is about to collapse? Is this the time to eat the whole dragon? I know. Shining tilted her head. I know, but you guys are still here roasting meat. Who exactly is the manager here? Hey. Radish is already mending. Shining pointed to the front. Radish? The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. When did Radish know how to repair plane cracks? You guys are freaking kidding me. Chapter 355. Lone Moon looked around and realized that not far away, there was an isolation array. He turned and walked over, lifting his hand to remove a corner of the array. Instantly, the scene in front of him was like a curtain being lifted. A corner fell, revealing the familiar half of the starry sky behind, and standing in the starry sky, a naked figure. As if sensing movement behind him, Radish, who was lifting his shirt, turned around subconsciously. Lone Moon only saw the two white lumps on his butt turn away, revealing the indescribable scene in front of him. Hey annoying guy, you're back. Radish, who had finally transformed into human form with much difficulty, called out and was about to walk over. The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. With lightning speed he covered the isolation array in his hand with a whoosh. He also added a few more layers of isolation arrays on top of it to cover this unsightly scene. Then, with a dark expression, he walked back. What is Radish doing? Playing hooligan in front of the 3,000 worlds? Shining took the roasted meat that Chef handed over and replied matter-of-factly, blooming. Wasn't that obvious? Nonsense. Of course I know he's blooming. Radish only knew how to play hooligan. Why is he blooming? To repair the plane. Shining answered as she chewed on the meat. Repair? Lone Moon was stunned. What do you mean? When did Radish have such an ability? What Master means is that there are too many worlds that had problems this time, it would be too late to repair them one by one. I Ching at the side then explained, so Master attached the data of plane repair to Radish. Radish is a 1,000 leaves vegetation spirit, it can communicate with all plants, its flowers can be accurately transmitted from here to every crack in the 3,000 worlds. So we let Radish bloom here, and then send the dandelions to those planes with plane cracks, directly to repair the plane in batches. There was such a method. Why didn't you say so earlier? Making him go down to the lower realm. Master didn't finish and you already left. You ran too fast, blame us. Motherf asterisk her. Shining nodded and wiped the oil off her mouth. Chef, give me another piece. Yes, Master. Father Nyo, you really don't want one? Get lost. Radish's sewing repair method was indeed useful. Soon Lone Moon saw the warning on the wristband dimming one by one. In less than half an hour, there were only 2 or 3 notifications left. Radish also walked out of the isolation array. Little Missy, I finished blooming. I even left the biggest one for you. After saying that, it raised a dandelion that was the size of a hydrangea flower and rushed over. The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. He stopped the man in his tracks and conjured a set of clothes, which he threw at him. Put your pants on. Tisk. Radish's face was full of unwillingness. Under Lone Moon's murderous gaze, it slowly put on its pants. He raised the dandelion in his hand and ran towards Shining. Little Missy, look, this is the biggest one. Shining, who had finally finished the roasted meat, turned to look at him and replied slowly, I don't want it. She was shedding her fur. The radish's enthusiasm was extinguished in an instant. The whole radish wilted. Big sister, sad, aggrieved, upset, seeing that she had no intention of accepting it at all, it took it back and turned back to its radish form. It picked up the pants that had fallen and threw it to Lone Moon. It must be that the pants did not look good, which caused it to give flowers in the wrong way. Little Missy did not accept it, definitely. Pooey. It was all the fault of the annoying ghost. He snorted at Lone Moon, then habitually climbed onto his leg and continued to be a pendant. Shining, do you see what's going on this time? Lone Moon did not care about Radish and looked directly at Shining. The sudden appearance of so many plane cracks was not normal no matter how he looked at it. How did these cracks come about? Under normal circumstances, only plane storms and plane invasions will cause cracks. Shining gestured for Chef to put away the unfinished roasted meat. With a tap of her hand, the grass under her feet disappeared instantly and the surroundings changed back to the starry sky. Only this time there were more star-like light balls floating in the air. Plane invasion? Lone Moon frowned. But there was no notification of an intruder just now. Indeed there wasn't. Shining said, "So these cracks are the same as the one in the demon world." Demon world? Lone Moon and I Ching were both shocked. I Ching directly went forward and asked, "Master is saying that these cracks also existed a long time ago? They were just covered up by something previously." Shining nodded. She thought for a moment and added, "When I was patching up this divine realm, I upgraded your sensors. That was why they could detect so many cracks at once. So, these were all pits left behind by the plane? But, if these cracks existed before, why were they fine before? But now they all exploded together?" Lone Moon frowned. This was too much of a coincidence, and it happened when the God Fiend was missing. Could it be that array formation? He suddenly thought of the light pillar in the demon world. It seemed that the plane cracks only appeared after that thing appeared. The immortal chi in that array formation is special. I Ching also nodded and said, "I have never seen immortal chi like that unless it was originally not something from this plane." Lone Moon continued. With that thought he connected the dots. It was that array formation and immortal chi that broke the plane? You're half right. Shining tilted her head and directly opened a light screen. She pointed to the data on it and said, "But that array formation is not used to break the plane but to repair it." What? The two of them were stunned. What do you mean? She reached out and tapped on the light screen. Instantly, an array diagram that was exactly the same as the one on the Demon Palace appeared in front of the few of them. In this array formation there are spatial laws. It cannot completely repair the plane cracks, but it can temporarily stabilize them. It is the same for other realms. Lone Moon was stunned. That meant that there was actually such an array above every crack. No wonder when he and Chef destroyed the array formation, that crack suddenly appeared. So that array formation was used to plug the gap. Could it be that because Chef and I destroyed that array the lower realm also collapsed? He frowned. No. Shining shook her head. She turned around and took out a fruit from Chef's pocket. As she nibbled on it she said, "The array at each crack is independent. The one in the demon world only sealed that one crack. And that array has been modified." Then what happened to those in the lower realm? Lone Moon asked anxiously. No wonder someone destroyed all those arrays at the same time. Not destroyed. Xinying's hand paused. She glanced at him and said, "It's taken back." What did that mean? Chapter 356. Lone Moon was stunned. I Ching, who was beside him, nodded in understanding. Master is right. No one can destroy so many arrays at once. Only the person who set up the arrays can retract them at any time. That meant it was the person who set up the arrays that caused so many cracks to appear at the same time. The person who set up the arrays? His heart sank. Could it be the God Fiend? But thinking about it carefully, it was impossible. It was not just him. I Ching did not fight with the God Fiend for nothing. He understood the God Fiend's aura the best. The special immortal chi on the arrays could not be the God Fiend's. And he was the ancient god of creation. He had racked his brains to get Shining to come here. Why would he find trouble for himself? Lone Moon's mind came up with a dramatic story. Even if the person who set up the arrays was not the God Fiend, he was definitely closely related to him. In other words, before Shining took over this plane, the God Fiend asked that person to temporarily seal the plane cracks. But now he had retracted the array and didn't even bother to greet them. Could it be that he fell out with the God Fiend? And just by looking at the number of cracks, it was obvious that this plane had long been pierced into a sieve. Who knew how much trouble there would be? The more Lone Moon thought about it, the more his head hurt. Xinjing was right. This plane was a huge F***king trap. What should they do now? They did not even know who set up the arrays. Who knew what other tricks the other party had up his sleeves? Master. I Ching suddenly thought of something. Can you trace the source of the special immortal chi on the arrays? Lone Moon's eyes brightened. Indeed, if they knew where the immortal chi came from, they would definitely be able to find out who set up the arrays. Let me try. She quickly finished the fruit in her hand and tapped on the light screen in front of her. After a while she stopped. Nothing. The two's expressions darkened. Indeed they could not find it. But we can trace this. Shining suddenly took out a transparent box filled with purple gas. This is the purple gas that the new Demon King wants to snatch? The two were stunned and immediately reacted. That's right. Shining said that the array in the Demon Palace had been modified. That was why the light beam that almost wiped out the demons appeared. It was obvious that the person who had altered the array was the new demon king who had disguised himself as a demon. And the person who could change the formation must be someone very familiar with the formation. He definitely knew who had set up the formation to seal the plane crack. What's more, the other party's target was the unknown purple chi in Xin Ying's hands. In other words, he would definitely appear in a place with this purple aura. Xin Ying opened her hand and the box containing the purple chi flew up. Wisps of chi floated out of it and floated towards the 3,000 worlds light ball. However, there was no reaction from the 3,000 worlds. In less than a moment, the purple gas returned to the box. No. Lone Moon was shocked. How was that possible? Xin Ying pointed to where the box was. Chef, what is that place? I Ching looked in the direction she was pointing. He took a closer look and said, those on the left should be mortal realms, and those on the right should be immortal realms. What about the middle? The middle? I Ching was stunned. He looked at the pitch-black space in the middle. Master, that's the void between the immortal realm and the mortal realm. There's nothing. Before he could finish, Xin Ying suddenly waved her hand. Immediately, the 3,000 worlds enlarged in front of them. It was especially so for the void that he had just mentioned. In the next moment, a pitch-black ball appeared in the middle. This is... Lone Moon and I Ching were shocked. They took a closer look and realized that the bead was covered with a layer of black chi. It blended into the darkness around it. This was a hidden realm. It's demonic chi. Lone Moon immediately conjured a seal. In an instant, the black chi on the light ball dissipated completely, revealing a complete light ball. And in the box containing the purple chi just now, a wisp of purple chi pointed towards that realm. Which realm is this? The two of them looked confused. They never knew that there was another hidden realm between the mortal realm and the immortal realm. And the layer of demonic chi that covered the realm just now obviously belonged to the Godfiend. Why did he hide this realm? No matter where this is, it must have something to do with the person who broke the array. I Ching said in a low voice. We'll know once we go in. Lone Moon nodded. Let's go in and find that person first. With that said, he waved his hand in the air and was about to enter that realm. Wait a minute. Xin Ying suddenly tugged at him. What's the matter? I just wanted to say something first. Xin Ying gave him a look that said, I'll make it clear this time, so that he wouldn't have to deduct my food expenses. This realm has disconnected from the plane. Lone Moon, I Ching, what? What do you mean disconnected? Lone Moon stepped forward and asked. To put it simply, this realm is independent. Xin Ying thought for a moment and added, in the words of this plane, it is no longer under the heavenly Tao. Lone Moon was stunned. Isn't this one of the 3,000 worlds? How could it not be under the heavenly Tao? He paused and suddenly thought of something. His eyes widened. Don't tell me this realm is also from another plane? No. He heaved a sigh of relief. Then why is it disconnected? Are planes allowed to be independent? In theory it's not allowed. She shook her head. But this plane is different. Lone Moon understood instantly. This plane was a sieve. Master is worried that our powers might be restricted after entering this world? I Ching asked. Xin Ying nodded. Never mind. Lone Moon clenched his fists. Let's go first. Even if they couldn't find the person who set up the array, they could find the God Fiend and beat him up first. Father Nyo, all the best. Xin Ying hurriedly waved. The figure who was about to fly into that realm paused and turned to the two people behind him who had nothing to do with him. He shouted, the two of you die too. We're going too? Bullsh *T. Whose plane was this, hey? So troublesome, shut up. Lone Moon only saw a white light flash in front of him. The next moment he was already on a narrow path. He subconsciously sensed the aura around him and was surprised to find that the air was actually filled with immortal chi and not spirit chi. But compared to the immortal realm, the immortal chi here was obviously much thinner. Could this be the effect of disconnecting from the plane? Xin Ying looked for. He turned and was about to remind Xin Ying to take out that ball of purple chi from before and look for clues, but only felt that there was no one beside him. Where is she? There was no one beside him. Not only Xin Ying, even Chef was gone. Chapter 357. Lone Moon hurriedly opened the communication device on his wristband, but there was no response at all. Could this be the restriction that Xin Ying was talking about? Not only was the location of entry random, but he could not use his assistant's authority in this interface? Then where was he going to find someone? He looked around and decided to find an immortal city to ask about the situation first. He was just about to fly on his sword when suddenly there were a few whooshing sounds in the air. After a few bird cries, a huge green bird suddenly appeared in the sky. With a light flap of its wings, a strong wind was stirred up, and in the next moment, a huge shadow fell down. Lone Moon subconsciously wanted to summon his immortal sword, but saw the huge bird's figure flash, instantly transforming into a human form, smiling as it walked towards him. "Fellow immortal, where are you going? Do you need professional bird service? We will provide you with a luxurious ride, exclusive service, 0 immortal power consumption, 5-star enjoyment. DD Beast beating rating is 99%. What the hell? Seeing that fellow immortal looks unfamiliar, there is a 30% discount for new customers. Just 3 mid-grade immortal stones, you can stop and leave immediately, guaranteed to arrive at your destination. Fellow immortal, are you leaving now?" With that said, he even patted himself hard on the back. The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. No need, I'll fly myself." With that said, he directly flew on his sword. "Fellow immortal, don't go, flying on a sword consumes a lot of immortal power. If 30% is not enough, 40% is fine too. How about 50%? What was going on? Lone Moon looked confused. He sped up on his sword and released his divine perception, only to find that there was an immortal city not far away. Indeed, in a short while, there were many palaces in front of him. He directly landed, only to see that there was a huge stone tablet outside the immortal city. On it was written a row of flamboyant words. "Shangfang Immortal City welcomes you." Lone Moon was stunned. Why did this type of welcome sound so familiar? Coupled with the DD Beast beating he had encountered previously, he suddenly had a bad feeling. After hesitating for a while, he walked in. Almost in an instant he heard the sound of bustling. "Big sale of 50% off. All immortal pills and pill tripod pavilion are on sale, 50% of everything, 50% of everything, only for this day, first come first serve. Treasure Tower clearance sale. Celestial artifacts that used to cost dozens or hundreds of celestial stones will now only cost 5 mid-grade celestial stones. Just 5 mid-grade celestial stones, you can choose any celestial artifact from level 1 to level 5. Shangfang Civil and Martial Immortal School is recruiting students. Our school has a top mystic immortal to teach. Your dream of ascension can be fulfilled in 100 years. Anyone below the Earth immortal level could sign up. All tuition fees will be refunded to those who fail to ascend to immortality upon graduation. Shangfang Civil and Martial Immortal School is the best place for you to raise your cultivation. Are you still distressed over the fact that you formed your gold core too late and that your appearance is getting old? Are you still regretting giving up on meridian cleansing and body reconstruction? The Brilliant Color Workshop's top-notch face casting pill will fulfill your immortal dreams. 7th grade Spirit Beast Egg. Lone Moon, this is Immortal City? Looking at these avant-garde marketing methods and familiar advertising slogans, did they hire a planner from another dimension, or did they travel through time together? Lone Moon's heart sank. There was obviously something wrong with this world, and it was very serious. There could be more than one invader. He had to find Shining quickly. Just as he was about to find out more about the situation, he suddenly heard a loud bang. He subconsciously looked up, only to see something suddenly rising into the sky not far away, exploding in the sky like fireworks. A huge golden array instantly enveloped the entire immortal city. There was no immortal pressure in that array at all. It was just like a mark shining brightly in the sky. Wow, that's a big deal. Just as he was feeling puzzled, the cultivators on the street all exclaimed. There was no panic in their voices, but rather some envy. I wonder which rich family actually bought a city-wide immortal seal. That's right, once this mark appears, tens of immortal cities around can see it. This is the first time I've seen a city-wide immortal seal. I wonder if the other party can earn back the price of this mark with such a big promotion. Rich great cultivators are indeed different. So the array in the sky was just an advertisement? Straight face, it's coming, the mark is activated. Someone reminded. All the cultivators on the street looked up, and Lone Moon subconsciously followed suit. They saw that the golden array in the sky suddenly began to change. The entire array diagram began to merge and change shape, turning into a large golden star that scattered down. In the middle, a word appeared faintly, becoming clearer and clearer. In less than 5 minutes, it finally formed into 3 striking words: Father Nyo. F***CK. What is Father Nyo? Has anyone heard of it? I've never heard of it. Could it be some top-grade elixir? Maybe it's some rare Dharma treasure. No, I think it must be some special cultivation technique. The corner of Loneman's mouth twitched and the veins on his forehead popped. His entire body was filled with killing intent. He conjured a wind-riding spell, turned and rushed towards the place where the array had just risen. Those two idiots. Fuck you. He rushed all the way to the square in the center of the immortal city. Indeed, from afar he saw a platform in the middle of the square. There were two familiar people standing on it. One of them was sitting lazily on a chair, nibbling on a fruit. The other stood behind him, holding a huge banner in his hand. On it, in golden words, was written, "Search for Father Nyo with a large sum of money." The two of them scanned the crowd in front of them while chatting casually. "Chef, do you think Father Nyo will see it?" "Don't worry, Master. With his cultivation, even if he doesn't meet up with us, he won't be in danger." Then how many immortal stones do we owe in total? Including the fireworks just now, a total of 45,105 mid-grade immortal stones. Chef, hurry. Release your divine perception and search every inch of the area. We must find Father Nyo. Yes, Master, no problem, Master. Lone Moon, who had just arrived at the square, stopped in his tracks. In the next moment, he turned and left without hesitation. Damn it, I don't know these two idiots. Father Nyo. Shining, however, recognized him at lightning speed. Chef, stop him. Yes, Master. In the next moment, a wave of sword rain fell in front of Lone Moon, directly surrounding him tightly. The surrounding cultivators all retreated. In an instant, only Lone Moon, who was surrounded by immortal swords, was left in the middle of the square. Shining stood up with a whoosh, raised her right hand high and greeted enthusiastically, "Yo, Father Nyo. Get lost. Don't think that I will repay your debt." Lone Moon deeply realized that he had raised two idiots who were losing money. It had only been less than 4 hours since they separated, but the two could actually spend tens of thousands of mid-grade immortal stones in a small immortal city. And they were only eating and did not buy any Dharma artifacts or Dharma treasures. Lone Moon clutched his bag of immortal stones. His heart was bleeding. More than 40,000 mid-grade immortal stones, more than 40,000. Rounded up, it was 100 million. How many? Pui, how long did he have to do business? How many spirit herbs and immortal artifacts he had to sell to make up for it? For the 101st time every day he wanted to sell these two idiots. Chapter 358. How on earth did you two owe so much money? Lone Moon glared at the two of them. Father Nyo, Shining was just about to answer. Shut up. Lone Moon stopped her directly and turned to look at Chef beside him. Speak. Never mind Shining, he was used to being tricked by her. Since when did even Chef become so unreliable? When Master and I came over, we happened to be in different directions of this immortal city. Yiching explained. It was already past lunchtime. When I found Master, she was eating at a mortal cuisine restaurant in the city. Master was too hungry and ate a little too much. That's it? Chef's gaze drifted before he continued. I found that the spirit rice in that restaurant was not bad, so I bought some along the way. Are you guys eating a dine and dash? Even if you ate and packed spirit rice, it wouldn't cost tens of thousands of immortal stones, right? Most cultivators abstained from eating, so it was not necessary for them to eat. Therefore, those kinds of restaurants for cultivators were not considered expensive. A meal cost hundreds of immortal stones at most. We spent 83 immortal stones. Then where did the rest come from? The rest. I Ching's expression changed. He coughed before continuing. After we finished eating, we realized that we did not bring immortal stones, so we rented a table to look for you and bought a missing person firework along the way. Then, it came to tens of thousands. So, Lone Moon took a deep breath. For 80-odd immortal stones for a meal, you spent tens of thousands just to find me to pay the bill. Master and disciple froze and looked up at the sky together. That. Father Nyo, don't mind such details. She really did not know that a firework would be so expensive. Get lost. I don't want to be your Father Nyo. Don't think about next month's living expenses. Go eat your spirit rice. Father Nyo. You mighty. Winky face, hey, are you going to pay the bill or not? The boss who had been standing at the side was getting impatient. He glanced at the three of them. It's a total of 45,005 middle-grade immortal stones. You have to pay it in full by today. This shop does not take credit. If you don't intend to pay for them, then don't blame me for extracting their cultivation and refining it into an immortal pill to repay the debt. As he spoke, he looked the two of them up and down, then snorted lightly. I thought you guys had some sort of backer, but you really can't afford it. If you don't have money, why would you buy an immortal city seal? No money? F***ck, who are you calling poor? Loneman's expression darkened. He took out a bag of immortal stones and threw it over. 45,105 mid-grade immortal stones, right? Here are 500 superior-grade immortal stones. Keep the change. He hated it the most when people said he had no money. You can't even talk about my daughter. A high-grade celestial stone. The boss was shocked and immediately smiled like a chrysanthemum. Looks like this little deity is worrying too much. If a mortal friend wants to issue an immortal city seal next time, our shop will give you a discount. No need. Seeing that the other party's expression wasn't very good, the boss didn't say much. Then I'll take my leave first. Thank you for your patronage. With that said, he took the bag of immortal stones and left. Lone Moon looked at the boss walking away. Something flashed across his eyes. He desperately suppressed the urge to beat the two of them up. He held the two of them and lectured them for a full 2 hours. Only then did he start to think about the situation in the entire immortal city. Ever since he came to this realm, he always felt that every place was filled with strangeness. Everything he saw along the way was too out of the ordinary. Those avant-garde advertisements and that strange immortal city seal in the air. He had a bold guess in his heart, but he didn't have time to verify it. After thinking for a while, he turned to look at the two cheaters behind him and said, Shining, the two of you stay here and don't walk around. I'll go buy some oranges? Shining subconsciously replied. The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. Get lost. Lone Moon asked around in the immortal city before he roughly understood the situation in this world. It was different from the mortal realm and the immortal realm. This was a world where immortals and mortals lived together. All mortals here could cultivate, from chi refinement all the way to mystic immortal. As for Stygian immortal and exalted immortal above mystic immortal, there seemed to be no such concept here. Or rather, no one had risen to such a cultivation level. And it was not like the cultivators of other realms, where there would be lightning tribulations every time they advanced. Lone Moon guessed that this might be because this realm was not under the heavenly Tao, so naturally there would be no heavenly tribulations. The cultivation system here was also extremely complicated. Other than the cultivation of the 5 elemental spirit roots, there was actually magic, battle chi, ancient martial arts, all kinds of cultivation methods. Just like the advertisement that Shining used to look for him in the sky previously, he only found out later that it was actually a magic array. Although it was also condensed from immortal chi, the effect was completely different. No wonder he didn't see any immortal pressure from that array at all. There were also many sects, schools, or training camps in this realm, all places to improve one's cultivation. It could be said that 100 flowers were blooming, good and bad mixed together. But the people here seemed to be used to it and didn't find it strange. Combined with what he saw before, the sales methods that were completely different from the immortal spirit plane, Lone Moon guessed that there might have been more than one invader in this world. Although he had long known that this plane might have long been pierced into a sieve, but seeing this sieve with his own eyes, he still felt shocked. So it's because of this that the God Fiend hid this world? I Ching frowned. Very likely. Lone Moon nodded. He should have gathered all those invaders in this world. That's why this place is so strange. The God Fiend separated it from the 3,000 realms, probably because he was afraid that these invaders would affect other realms. But the people here don't look like invaders to me. Indeed not, Lone Moon said. I just asked around. The knowledge they know outside the immortal cultivation world is all taught by their predecessors. The first people who knew about it are long dead. Which means that the invaders who were isolated from this world by the God Fiend have actually long disappeared. The people in this world now are all the descendants of those invaders? Was this a world transformed by a travel group? Should be so. That's impossible. I Ching shook his head. This world is isolated from the heavenly Tao, which means that the souls here can't enter samsara. Then where did the people here come from? They couldn't have appeared out of thin air, could they? I can't figure that out either. Lone Moon frowned. He indeed couldn't sense the aura of the river of forgetfulness in this world, which meant that this was a place where one could only enter but not exit. But the cultivators here were clearly not less than any other realm, so where did these people come from? Looks like we can only ask the God Fiend about this. Lone Moon nudged Shining beside him. Have you found any clues about that purple gas? Oh. Shining seemed to have just remembered the matter at hand. She took out that purple gas box. In the next instant, a tiny thread rushed towards the right side of everyone. In the south. That's north. Lone Moon frowned, gave Chef a look, then flew up on his sword and flew in that direction. Chapter 359. The three of them followed the purple thread. In order to take care of that tiny thread of purple chi, they flew slowly. From time to time, a few cultivators flew past them. They didn't know if it was an illusion, but the further north they flew, the more cultivators there were, and all of them seemed especially happy and excited. Some even greeted them in a friendly manner. They didn't care at first until there were more and more people around them, and everyone who passed by looked at them weirdly. Lone Moon vaguely felt that something was wrong, but he didn't think too much about it because he was thinking about the purple chi. Until Xinying, who was on I Ching's sword, suddenly said, "Ah, it's gone." The two of them stopped, then realized that the thread in Xinying's hand suddenly broke, and not a single thread floated over. What's going on? If the aura didn't disappear, it should mean that we're already here. I Ching reminded. Only then did the three of them start to look around. Looking down, they saw a lake below them, and there seemed to be a small island in the lake. They could vaguely see that there were many people gathered on the island. All of them had smiles on their faces as if they were discussing something. It was very lively. The three of them exchanged a look, then landed. Just as they were about to check if there was the same purple chi on the island, there was suddenly a silence. The island that was very lively just a moment ago was suddenly silent, and all the cultivators on the island suddenly looked towards them. Their eyes were full of shock and disbelief, and the way they looked at them became even weirder. Lone Moon's heart sank. Could it be that this island was some private property and others couldn't step foot on it? But these people obviously didn't look like they were from the same sect, and there were no array formations or restrictions on this island. Why were they looking at him like that? Lone Moon was confused, but he habitually raised his business smile and greeted, "Greetings, fellow immortals." He was just about to ask about the situation when suddenly a cold snort came from the opposite side. It's so offensive, it's unsightly. A man in a long green robe suddenly swept a look at him and Chef, his face full of disgust, as if looking at them one more time would dirty his eyes. You've tarnished such a sacred place for no reason. With that said, he directly tied the red cloth in his hand to the branch at the side, pulled a female cultivator beside him and flew away. What was going on? Lone Moon's mouth twitched. He hadn't offended this cultivator, had he? All he did was greet him. Wasn't he talking to him alone? What did he do to provoke him? The moment the azure-clothed cultivator left, the silence from before was broken. The cultivators at the scene became lively again, but their voices were clearly much quieter. Although their gazes would occasionally glance in their direction, they would intentionally or unintentionally stay away from the three of them. There were even quite a few people who followed the azure-clothed cultivator away. After a moment, the originally crowded island became empty. The trio? Meow meow meow. Fellow immortal, don't worry about it. Suddenly, a cultivator in a blue robe stepped forward and patted him on the shoulder sympathetically. Those cultivators are obviously from Shuiyue City. They're used to being conservative, that's why they can't accept it. The two fellow immortals are already here, so there's no need to care about the opinions of others. As soon as these words were spoken, more people came forward and looked at them with sympathy. They all tried to persuade them one after another. Fellow immortal is right. The two of you deserve praise for your courage. Don't worry about those rumors, just treat each other with sincerity. Yes, nothing in this world is perfect. Even if there's no result, it's enough to show your sincerity. I also think that the two of you will be fine. That's right. Man proposes, God disposes. Perhaps there really will be a miracle. More and more people came forward. In an instant, the entire island was divided into two groups of people. One group looked distressed, as if they had just suffered a great injustice. The other group was full of disdain, as if taking another look would dirty their eyes. Wait. Lone Moon was confused. Why did it feel so strange? What were these people talking about? You. He was just about to ask. The blue-robed cultivator who first came to comfort him suddenly materialized a red ribbon and stuffed it into his hand with an enthusiastic expression. Come. Take it, fellow immortal, go ahead first. No matter what the result is, just take it as a token of our appreciation. With that said, he gave Lone Moon a push to the big tree in the middle of the island. Together with him was Chef, who looked equally confused and was also stuffed with a red ribbon. What was going on? Lone Moon and Chef exchanged a look. They looked at the ribbon in their hands, then looked at the people around them who were looking at them with encouraging eyes. Only then did they realize that the people standing here were a man and a woman, a pair. Suddenly they had a bad feeling. Well, May I ask what tree is this? The cultivator in blue behind them smiled and said even more kindly, "Fellow immortal, don't worry. You've come to the right place. If you don't believe me, look at the stone tablet at the side." Lone Moon turned to look. Indeed, there was a stone tablet under the tree. On it, a few golden words formed by immortal spells were shining: child-giving marriage tree. Lone Moon, I Ching. The two of them stiffened as if they had been petrified. They had the urge to stab their own eyes. Pray, pray, pray for children. Beg your sister Ah. So these people were looking at them strangely just now. Did they think they were here to pray for children? Him and I Ching. How did they know they were here to pray for children? And what the hell was with him and Chef? Even if you're a civ, do you have to be so imaginative? How did they look like a couple? What's more, Shining was clearly standing beside Chef. No one would suspect that he and Chef were a couple, right? Are you guys blind? Wait, Chef, why did you suddenly retreat so far away? I'm straight. Master, I used my divine perception to check. There are no traces of purple chi here. Let's go look elsewhere. With that said, he carried Shining onto his sword and flew out. Lone Moon, a while later, you two little rascals come back. The surrounding couples. Huh? What was going on? When did the woman on the sword come? Why was there another person in the relationship that was not allowed in the world? Triangle. In an instant, the fire of gossip on the island of marriage burned. What do we do now? Lone Moon, who had finally caught up with the two of them, sighed and turned to look at them. His mouth twitched. Chef, why are you hiding so far away? Air. I Ching subconsciously looked up at the sky. I'll say it again. I'm straight. Lone Moon resisted the urge to beat them up. Enough with the two of you. Let's talk business. Get over here. I'm just worried that you'll lead Master astray. Chapter 360. Only then did I Ching bring Shining closer. Lone Moon frowned and suppressed his anger. He said, the clue to the purple gas is broken. If we want to find it, then dash. It's not broken. Shining suddenly said. What? Lone Moon faltered. Shining suddenly handed over the box containing the purple gas. The thin line that extended from the box appeared again. But this time it was pointing towards the west. Holy shit. When did it appear again? I don't know. Shining tilted her head. I just found it again. Lone Moon took the box from her and looked at it carefully. Never mind, let's look in the direction it's leading us. With that said, she flew in the direction of the purple light. I Ching hurriedly followed. Master, just dash. I Ching was about to say a few words when he realized that Shining was looking in the direction of the fertility tree. She looked like she was thinking about something. Master? Master. Is there something wrong? Shining turned back. After thinking for a while, she said, Chef, don't you think that just now dash found it? Lone Moon suddenly stopped. He looked at the box in his hand and pointed downwards. It's down there. Indeed, the box containing the purple gas was emitting a faint purple light. It seemed like it was being led by something. The few of them landed directly. To their surprise, there was actually a dense forest below them. There were tall and strong trees everywhere, and it seemed that very few people set foot in it. As soon as they entered the forest, even the sunlight dimmed, and the surroundings became a little dark. The three of them were a little surprised. Previously, the purple gas was hidden in the Dharma artifacts that looked like accessories. Naturally, they also thought that other places with purple gas should be hidden in Dharma artifacts. But this forest did not look like a place to store Dharma artifacts. Lone Moon directly scanned the area with a spell but did not find anything. He frowned. Why is there no reaction? If there was nothing wrong with the purple gas, the thing should be here. The few of them looked around for a while. Father Nyo, don't you think? I Ching suddenly pointed to the trees around them. The position of the trees around here is a little strange? Trees. It was then that Lone Moon noticed the tall trees around him. He looked around carefully and his eyes widened. This is an array formation. A trace of shock flashed in their eyes. Arrays had always required energy to be maintained. Spiritual chi, immortal chi, and devil chi were all fine. However, this formation was maintained by natural trees. The plants were rooted in the ground, and there were immortal veins flowing underground. More or less, the immortal veins would be absorbed into the plants. This formation relied on this to lay down a natural concealment formation. People would only think that there was an abundance of immortal energy here and would not notice that there was an array formation here. This was the first time they had seen such a technique, and they couldn't help but praise the creativity of the person who set up the array. Lone Moon walked towards one of the trees and sent a sliver of immortal chi over. He forcefully changed the direction of the array and broke it. Almost in the blink of an eye, the lush forest in front of them twisted, as if a green curtain had been lifted. The forest disappeared in an instant, and a majestic palace instantly appeared in front of the three of them. The surrounding immortal chi flourished, making one feel as though they were bathing in an immortal vein. There should be a historical sight inside. Lone Moon looked at the palace that was wrapped in immortal chi and looked a little blurry. Let's go in and take a look. Be careful. With that said, he stepped in first and I Ching followed. Xining was the last to enter. The moment she stepped in, she suddenly stopped in her tracks and turned back to look at the forest behind them. Master? I Ching saw that she had stopped and turned back to ask. Xinying's eyes darkened, and then she turned back to follow. It's nothing, let's go. In front of them was a path that looked like it was made of jade, winding towards the palace in front. It was not a long distance, but it was floating in the air step by step. The three of them walked up step by step. The path was not long, and in a short while they arrived at a square. The square was huge, the kind that they could not see the end of. They directly flew over on their swords and arrived in front of the palace. They saw that there was a red horizontal board hanging high above the palace. On it were 3 words, Purple Night Palace. The words were bold and powerful, as though they contained some kind of nomological power. Lone Moon and I Ching could not help but frown, and after a glance they did not look closely. Xining, on the other hand, looked up excitedly for a long while. The door to the palace was tightly shut. Lone Moon originally thought that there would at least be 1 or 2 arrays blocking the door. Unexpectedly, he only gave it a gentle push, and the door creaked open, and there was a series of echoes. The three of them walked into the palace and looked. Just like the outside, there was no one inside. The immortal chi was obviously as thick as the immortal world heavenly palace, but for some reason, it gave them a gloomy feeling. It seemed that this place had been abandoned for a long time. The strange thing was that there seemed to be no damage in the surroundings. It was unbelievably clean, but there was no sign of anyone. Quick, look in the middle. I Ching pointed to the place in the palace where the immortal chi was the thickest. Lone Moon turned to look, and there was a faint purple light coming from there. His heart tightened and he hurried over. Indeed, in the middle of the palace, there was a white jade platform on which a lamp was burning. But the lamp was not lit by a flame, but a wisp of smoke like purple chi. Found it. Lone Moon was delighted and picked up the lamp. There is indeed purple. Father Nyo. Before he could finish, I Ching's eyes widened and he looked at him in shock. Put it down quickly. Lone Moon was stunned and turned to look, only to see that the purple chi on the lamp had suddenly turned into a purple flame, spreading towards him at an extremely fast speed. In an instant, it climbed up his arm as though it was going to swallow him whole. He subconsciously wanted to let go, but he could not. His hand was completely numb. I Ching directly swept a beam of sword chi in the direction of his hand, and then the purple flame was forced back. With a clang, the lamp fell to the ground. And Lone Moon's entire sleeve was burnt, and a large wound appeared on his arm. His heart was instantly shocked. What sorcery was that just now? He actually did not feel anything at all. Before he could think carefully, the palace door suddenly closed with a loud bang. The array of the entire palace lit up, and in an instant the originally slightly dark palace was illuminated by a white light. Suddenly, a beam of light fell from the sky, directly breaking a big hole in the palace. A man's voice suddenly sounded with some vicissitudes. You're finally here, manager? Chapter 361. A few figures suddenly appeared in the sky. A quick count showed that there were more than 10 of them. There were both men and women, all of them emanating immortal chi. They carried with them a threatening aura, even more powerful than the Celestial Emperor's cultivation. Lone Moon's heart sank. He scanned the people in the sky and realized that beside the man who had just spoken was the missing new demon king. However, there was no demonic chi around him. Instead, he was filled with immortal chi. The strange thing was that their immortal chi was completely different from that of immortal cultivators. It seemed to be exceptionally thick. Lone Moon's mind flashed. He looked at that person and said, "You led us here on purpose." That's right. That person snorted and turned to look at the 3 people below. His eyes were filled with deep hatred. That plane should have collapsed long ago. You should not exist at all. You should not have a manager. Lone Moon was shocked. They already knew Xinying's identity. Who are you people? We're here to end you. The person who spoke first answered. He did not seem to have any intention of explaining to them. His eyes turned cold. Don't worry. Once you die, we will personally send this entire plane on its way. With that said, he waved his hand and the people behind him rushed towards them with swords in hand. The array around them grew brighter. The blinding white light suddenly condensed into sharp blades that covered the sky and earth. A huge suppressive force instantly filled every corner. Even Lone Moon and I Ching felt their hearts stop. It was clearly just immortal chi, but it had a more terrifying suppressive force than god power. Lone Moon subconsciously conjured a seal to summon his immortal sword to defend himself. But he felt that all the immortal power in his body was gone. Not only did he not summon his immortal sword, he even lost contact with his intrinsic Dharma artifact. The immortal chi around him was so thick that it was unimaginable. Yet he could not use any of it. He could not even use any spells. It was as if all his cultivation was suddenly destroyed. He watched helplessly as a blade slashed across his body, leaving behind a trail of blood. He was shocked. But he saw that I Ching beside him was also confused. He could only barely use his sword to block the blades that were attacking him from all directions. What was going on? What array is this? Strange. You can't use your powers? As if sensing their confusion, the person in the sky laughed coldly. Haven't you noticed that this plane no longer belongs to you? The moment you entered the hall, we had already separated this place from your plane. In other words, you are no longer in your own territory. Even if you are a manager, you can't do anything to us. Leave the plane? Lone Moon was shocked. You're invaders. Humph? Invasion? He suddenly laughed coldly, but his tone was full of mockery. Even the eyes of the others instantly emitted a bone-deep hatred. So in your eyes we're just invaders? His eyes instantly turned as cold as ice. Monstrous anger immediately surged out, and even his eyes were stained with the color of blood. He said word by word, even if we invade and destroy this world, you and the god fiend owe us. Demon god? They were stunned. What did that bastard do this time? That person's expression became even more ferocious, and there were faint signs of madness. But he did not continue to explain. Instead, he shouted to his companions who were attacking him, capture that manager first. The few who were still fighting with I Ching immediately turned and flew in Xin Ying's direction. Master. Chef panicked. He wanted to turn and stop them, but it was already too late. What's more, his powers were useless here. There was no way he could rush over. He could only watch as more than 10 figures flew behind him at lightning speed and grabbed Xining, and Father Nyo who was beside her. I Ching, Xining, meow meow meow. Lone Moon. Son of AB***. In the next moment, Lone Moon had already been grabbed and brought to the side of the leader in the sky. A circle of spells directly lit up beside him, locking him in place. A purple light flashed between the hands of the person who spoke earlier. Immediately, a sharp blade burning with purple flames condensed. The flames were exactly the same as the one on the lamp just now. Since you're a manager, then die with the plane. With that said, he raised the sharp blade in his hand and chopped it down. Holy shit. Lone Moon's heart tightened. Subconsciously he shouted, Xining. Just as the purple flames were about to cut him, a hand suddenly reached out from the side and directly grabbed the purple sharp blade. The blade instantly stopped less than 4 fingers away from Lone Moon. It could not go any closer. A sigh came from the side. But he's not a manager. Xining, who suddenly appeared in the sky, tilted her head and said, I am. What? The person had not yet recovered from the shock of recognizing the wrong person. Xin Ying's hand that was holding the blade tightened. There was a crisp sound, and the blade condensed from purple flames instantly shattered. It turned into a fluorescent light and disappeared. That person was stunned. In the next moment he only felt his vision blur. The world spun and his whole body was in intense pain. Xining picked up the leader with one hand. Like playing badminton, she raised the person in her hand and knocked down the figures around them one by one. Not a single one was left. Suddenly there was a series of rumbling sounds in the hall. More than 10 figures fell like dumplings. Some smashed into the floor, some smashed into the walls, some smashed into the pillars. In an instant there were several artistic human-shaped holes in the entire hall. In less than half a minute the array formations in the hall all dimmed. The entire hall rumbled and collapsed completely. That's why reasoning and whatnot was really so troublesome. Xining sighed. Only then did she throw the racket in her hand. Apui. It was the leader who threw it down. Father Nyo, who was holding the racket, landed beside Chef. He grabbed the spell runes that trapped him and gently pulled them out of Loneman's body. So, this is a manager. The person who was thrown down struggled to raise his head. He looked at Xining with a very complicated expression. There seemed to be hatred and resentment, but also a trace of undetectable envy. He laughed coldly and said, "The power of a manager comes from the plane they manage. I clearly already isolated you from that plane, but you still... Oh." Xining tilted her head and thought about it seriously before answering, "I can only say that you know nothing about managers?" The corner of Loneman's mouth twitched. It wasn't that he knew nothing about managers. It was that he knew nothing about this person who had cheats. He and Chef were clearly suppressed, but you weren't. I can't accept this. The person's eyes were filled with even more hatred. Hatred rushed out like a broken dam. A trace of determination flashed in his eyes. The craziness in his eyes intensified. Why can such a despicable plane find a manager? Why can a despicable person like Godfiend's plane be completely stable? Why do we have to be robbed of our original power and banished to the outside world? We can't accept this. If we must be destroyed, your plane should be destroyed too. He seemed to use the last of his strength to shout at the three people. The three of them were stunned. Before they could understand what he meant, there was a flash of purple light in his hand. A familiar purple box appeared. Wasn't this the box that Xining used to seal the purple gas in? Lone Moon subconsciously touched his side. It was indeed gone. When did he snatch it? His heart sank. What are you trying to do? But it was too late. There was a flash of purple light in the other party's hand. Immediately, the purple gas in the box surged out wildly and drilled straight into the ground. Chapter 362. In the next moment, a purple crack spread out in all directions. In an instant, it covered the entire sky and earth. The world shook violently, and the rumbling sounds of collapse rang out incessantly. That purple light slowly faded, and even the sky seemed to be torn apart, with several cracks appearing. It was like the divine realm of the Godfiend, only the speed of collapse was faster. In just a few breaths' time, the entire place was in ruins. The chaotic energy that belonged to the void poured out from the crack in all directions. Everything withered in an instant. Life faded. You want to destroy this small world? Loneman's eyes widened in disbelief. This was clearly the collapse of the entire plane. Your plane should have collapsed a long time ago. The man's eyes became more and more crazed. He was filled with the determination to perish together with Lone Moon. Not just this plane. The other 3,000 worlds should not exist either. You're crazy. Lone Moon looked at the increasingly broken plane in front of him. Do you know how many living beings there are in this plane? And if you destroy this place, you'll die too. So what? He suddenly laughed maniacally. He turned to look at Xining. His eyes lit up with excitement. We should have died a long time ago. As long as we kill the manager, your entire plane will be buried with us. This man had gone crazy. This plane has already been completely cut off from the plane. As long as it is destroyed, even the manager cannot escape. Let them perish together with this plane. That's not for sure, Xining suddenly said. Xining suddenly spoke. She did not look anxious at all. She took out a box and tossed it out. It was a box that looked similar to the transparent cube from before. But this one was red. As soon as the box flew out, it instantly grew in size, covering the entire plane with an earth-shattering force. Wherever it passed through, the turbid gas that gushed in from the cracks faded away. Although there were still cracks everywhere, the entire interface seemed to have been paused. Not only did it collapse, but even time seemed to have stopped. Loneman's body relaxed. The pressure that had just appeared on him suddenly disappeared. He looked up at the sky. It was so big that he could not see it anymore. There was only a faint layer of red light left. Yet it was as if it spanned across the sky. What? Where did you get so many boxes? Isolator. After thinking for a while, she added, in the past, when my sister was angry, she locked me in a little black, little red room. So it was Xinjing's work again. However, this little red house was a little too big. It had already enclosed a small world. What did you do? The person who was laughing maniacally on the ground a moment ago looked around in disbelief. This small world had clearly cracked open, so why did it stop? Were managers really that powerful? Even if this small world had already left the plane, she could still easily stop it from collapsing. Xining did not intend to answer him. She walked over and pulled him out of the pit. She said seriously, "We are reasonable. You can tell me your story now." That person was taken aback. Before he could react, A voice came from the other side. Let go of the primordial chaos sage. At some point in time, a person climbed out of the pit. It was a familiar person. It was the fake demon king who stole the dowry last time. Perhaps because Xining had knocked him a little too hard, he could still force himself to stand up. He glared at Xining angrily and threatened in a low voice. As he spoke, he suddenly turned his hand. Instantly, a purple light flashed and a familiar figure appeared beside him. His entire body was tied up like a dumpling by chains of purple qi. His face was pale and he could not move. His aura was also much weaker. The dumpling looked up and his eyes lit up. He called out, "Boss?" It was the god fiend who had been missing for a long time. Indeed, he had been captured by these people. The fake demon king conjured an immortal sword and placed it against the god fiend's neck. Once again he shouted, "Let go of primordial chaos. Otherwise I will kill him." The three of them were stunned. They exchanged a look and then replied in unison, "All right." 3. The fake demon king, the god fiend, what? Kill him, kill him. There's no use in it anyway. That's right. This fellow only knows how to cause trouble. I've wanted to beat him up for a long time. As you wish. Hurry up and do it. The god fiend's heart ached. After all, he had been calling her boss for so many days. Was he really so unimportant? Asterisk 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 asterisk. Master, it's almost time for dinner. I Ching calculated and stepped forward to remind Xining. Xining nodded. She looked around at the mess and said, "It's too dirty here. Let's go back and eat." With that said, she reached out a finger and drew a line in the air. The air twisted and a passage opened up. Plain passage. The person who was still being held opened his eyes wide in shock. How is this possible? He had clearly completely cut off the plane connection with this small world. What's more, half of it had already collapsed. By right, he should have returned to the chaos. How was it that she could easily open a plane and teleport back? Lone Moon glanced at him and said, "Just get used to it." There was no need to talk about logic in front of a cheat. Seeing that the few of them were leaving just like that, the man who was holding the god fiend looked confused. Wait, are you really not going to save the god fiend? Anders? Xining suddenly thought of something. She stopped in her tracks and turned to look at them. "Oh yes, you haven't eaten either, have you? Let's eat together." With that said, the man felt a suction force coming from behind him. A white light flashed before his eyes. The next moment he was standing in a starry sky. Not far from the ground, there were more than 10 people who had been smashed into the ground by Xining. They had not woken up yet. There were also light balls of various sizes surrounding them. One of them was especially obvious. It was contained in a translucent red box. Inside it there were scattered pieces. It was the small world they were in just now. "Master, please wait a moment. Dinner will be ready soon." I Ching habitually conjured a table, chair, bowls and chopsticks. Then he took out the remaining roasted dragon meat. With a flash of sword light, he cut it into pieces and placed them on the table. "Master, if you're hungry, eat this first." "All right." Xining nodded. She threw the man in her hands onto the chair beside her. She picked up a piece of meat and stuffed it into her mouth. Because it was sealed with sorcery, it was still hot. Delicious. Chef then turned and disappeared under the starry sky. He headed toward the newly built grassy kitchen in the divine realm. Xining ate half a bowl of roasted meat before she thought of something. She glanced at the man beside her. "Do you want to eat?" Only by eating can one have the strength to reason. Hongmeng was stunned. For a moment he could not figure out what she meant. Why did she start to eat in the middle of a fight? But it was not convenient for him to ask. In addition, his injuries were too serious. He could only look at her without moving. Instead, the god fiend, who was still tied up, let out a pitiful cry. "Boss, have you forgotten about this baby?" Chapter 363. Xining looked up at him, then turned to look at Lone Moon at the side. "Father Nyo, help him. I'm not free." The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched, then he turned and walked over there. The fake demon king who was still holding onto the person tensed up, and after a while, he lowered his hand as if he had given up. They had already returned to the boundary of the plane, and the assistant power that belonged to Lone Moon naturally returned as well. They had no power to resist at all. Lone Moon grabbed lightly, and the purple aura that trapped the god fiend disappeared instantly. Then he walked over with a person in each hand. In the next moment, the few people who were originally fighting to the death were already sitting together at the same table and eating dinner. To be more accurate, Xining was eating alone. Lone Moon rolled his eyes. Hong Meng and the fake Demon King looked on in bewilderment, while the God Fiend could only stand. There were more than 10 unconscious people lying on the ground. For a moment, in the entire divine realm, there was only the sound of Shening eating, and the footsteps of chef who went in and out to serve food from time to time. Just like that, the few of them sat at the table and watched Shening finish her meal without saying a word. Their minds were blank and they even felt a little hungry. Only when all the dishes on the table disappeared, did a certain someone let out a loud burp and then stopped. Chef at the side had already cleaned up the table quickly, and replaced it with fruits and tea. After thinking for a while, he conjured a seal to turn the square table in the middle into a round table, and added a chair for himself beside Shening to sit down, and even kindly handed a stool to the God Fiend who had been standing at the side. The corner of the God Fiend's mouth twitched, and he sat down with a frown. Instantly, he was much shorter than everyone else, most of his body had shrunk under the table, and only his bitter head could be seen on the table. The God Fiend. Yiqing did this on purpose, right? It was definitely true. We can begin. Shening nibbled on the fruit in her hand and said casually, "Tell me, those indescribable things between you and the God Fiend?" Yiqing, Lone Moon, the God Fiend, although he did have an irreconcilable grudge with these people, why did he feel that boss's question was a little strange? The other two snorted coldly and looked at them with disdain. After a while, the one called Hong Meng said, "As a manager, you should know about the grudges between us." "I'm not sure." Shening tilted her head. "Tell me." "You." The other party seemed to be even angrier than before. "If you want to kill us, just kill us. What are you trying to do with us with your gorilla attitude?" After he finished speaking, he glared at them as if his eyes were about to burst into flames. He took a few deep breaths before he managed to restrain himself. He turned his head and didn't say another word, as if it was beneath him to say another word. The corner of Xinying's mouth twitched. Were they going to enter the plot of, "I don't want to listen, I don't want to listen, I don't want to listen"? Whether you believe it or not, we've only just taken over this plane. Lone Moon, who was at the side, couldn't stand it anymore. He took the initiative to take over the conversation. "We really don't know much about your matters. You can choose not to say, but..." His gaze turned cold. "If you miss this chance, even if you want to say it, you won't have another chance. My master is only giving you a chance to explain." Yiqing's expression turned cold as he said, "As for the rest, you don't even have the strength to resist. You speak as if you can beat master, little bitches." The two opposite them paled instantly, and their eyes began to waver. "Boss." The God Fiend at the side, however, lowered his expression and said weakly, "Actually, we did come from another plane." Before he finished speaking, Hong Meng seemed to have suddenly thought things through. His eyes were still filled with resentment, but he was much calmer than before. He glared at the God Fiend who was almost hiding under the table. "But, we did not invade this plane of our own accord. You God Fiend invited us here." "What?" The three of them were shocked, but Hong Meng laughed coldly and closed his eyes. His entire person exuded an aura of vicissitudes and despair. He turned to look at Shening, his eyes filled with that kind of indecipherable emotion. After a long while he said everything in a low voice. And so they heard a story that was completely unexpected. These people indeed came from another plane, and it was an immortal spirit plane that was extremely similar to this world. Different from this plane which only had 3 great ancient gods, there were 13 saints at the beginning of creation on their side, which were the dozen or so who besieged them previously. Similar to this world, there was also no manager over there. As time passed, the plane without a manager became weaker and weaker, showing signs of collapse. Just when they were completely at their wits' end and were wandering around the various planes looking for a scapegoat, Apui looking for a manager, when they came to their plane, they then found out that there was a place that shared the same fate as them. After that, both sides also interacted with each other. At that time, both worlds were on the brink of collapse. Relying on the power of one side alone, there was no way to stop the collapse of the plane. Both sides discussed and thought of a way to stay together. Both sides agreed to face the crisis of the plane together, gather the power of both planes, and stabilize the situation one by one. As the situation on the God Fiend's side was more serious, they decided to start from here. So the God Fiend who stayed behind opened the plane door and invited the few of them over. Together, everyone spent a lot of time to repair this plane and put in all their effort. They even thought of the idea of dividing the plane into 3,000 small worlds, to temporarily delay the total collapse of the plane. It was also from then on that this world had the 3 realms of heaven, earth and human. It also gave the living beings of this world the direction to cross the small worlds, which was the cultivation method later on. The reason why they had immortal chi on them, but it was obviously different from the immortal world, was because the original immortal cultivation method originated from them. It was just that the plane of cultivation was different and there were differences. After many years of hard work, things finally developed in a good direction. The hard work and cooperation of both sides bore fruit, and this plane was pulled back from the brink of collapse. Although it was still unstable, it was not as weak as before. Even the plane cracks left by the 3,000 worlds were temporarily repaired. As long as a manager appeared within the time limit, this plane could be completely stabilized. But just when they were all happy for this plane and sighed in relief, they were met with a huge blow. Their own plane had collapsed. Due to the fact that the plane was extremely fragile to prevent accidents when they repaired this world, they did not frequently cross over to other planes. They did not even go back to check on the situation there. By the time they found out, it was already too late. Their original plane had completely turned into nothingness, and all the living beings were wiped out. After putting in so much effort to repair other planes, in the end, they received the grievous news that their own plane had completely disappeared. No one could accept that. So, the original cooperative relationship of helping each other was completely shattered. The remaining 13 sages developed a monstrous hatred for the entire plane. And the last straw that broke the camel's back was the betrayal of the god fiend. Chapter 364. Our biggest mistake was to trust you, you despicable person. Hong Meng's eyes were filled with that bone-deep hatred again. He glared at the god fiend, who was almost hiding under the table. We did everything we could to help you. Your plane stabilized, but our world turned into nothingness. Yet he took the opportunity to steal our original purple chi and banished us to the outer realm. Shouldn't we take revenge for such a deep grudge? Every single word he spoke was filled with blood, and every single word he spoke carried a belly full of rage and the grief and indignation of helplessness towards the collapse of his homeland. It was like his final lament. His whole body tensed up as if he was going to break in the next moment. Everyone at the table fell silent. Even Lone Moon, who had always been eloquent, did not know what to say. He had never thought that the truth would be like this. So this plane was actually built with their help. And because of this, it indirectly caused the collapse of the other party's world. No one would be able to accept such a thing. He suddenly understood why these people had looked at them with such complicated emotions. That hatred was probably not towards them, but towards the god fiend, this world, and even towards themselves for not discovering the problem with their plane in time. He had to say, with all this on their backs, it was already very strong that they did not go crazy. And what he did not expect was that the god fiend, the three of them turned to look at the person beside them. The god fiend's eyes darkened. He looked at Hong Meng, and after a while he opened his mouth and said, Hong Meng, what happened back then was not like what you think. Ha, you're still quibbling. Hong Meng's eyes became even redder. Without a doubt, if Shining was not here, he would have rushed over and turned the god fiend into ashes. Who was it that stole our original purple chi? Who was it that banished us to the outer realm forever? And who was it that created the demonic world just to use demonic chi to lock us in there forever? The god fiend's eyes were filled with guilt. He seemed to want to say something, but he moved his mouth and finally did not speak. We only hate the unfairness of the great Tao. I can't believe that a despicable person like you could find a manager in this plane. He took a deep breath, as if he was desperately trying to suppress the anger in his heart. In the next moment he seemed to have lost his last bit of strength. His whole body was emitting a faint death chi. He looked up at Shining and said after a while, We really want to kill you and drag the entire plane down with us. But we are not as skilled as you. Perhaps we should have disappeared with our own plane long ago. You really did these things. Lone Moon turned to look at the god fiend in disbelief. God fiend's expression changed and something flashed in his eyes. After a while he nodded expressionlessly. Yes. You? Lone Moon wanted to beat him up on his behalf. Although she knew that he was trash, she didn't expect him to be trash to this extent. After making full use of the other party, he even seized the other party's source of energy and locked him up. You shouldn't burn the bridge after crossing it like this. Should he be thankful that he only kicked them back to their original plane and not killed them directly? I am the god of creation. For the sake of this plane, any means are worth it. He said word by word as if he had no regrets at all. Lone Moon's eyes widened. He had seen shameless people before, but he had never seen someone so shameless. Without what happened back then, there would not be the three realms today. He stood up slowly. His original kind expression changed to one of coldness. The original source purple gas can help me stabilize this plane. Why shouldn't I use it? Damn. You really are AF * king scum. In the situation back then, I had no choice but to do so. He glanced at Hong Meng and the other man. My existence has always been to protect this world. As for the matters of other planes, it has nothing to do with me. You? The two opposite him stood up in anger. Your plane has already returned to chaos. Whatever you do is futile. Why drag this side down with you? Godfiend. Lone Moon could not bear to listen anymore. Hong Meng threw a punch at him. Just as it was about to hit the Godfiend's face, Shining suddenly reached out and grabbed his wrist. She turned and said lazily, "Why don't I return the plane to you on his behalf?" I Ching, Lone Moon, Hong Meng, the Godfiend, what? Everyone was silent for a moment. Hong Meng especially widened his eyes. His eyes, which were originally full of death chi, shone faintly. As if afraid of startling something, he lowered his voice and said, What do you mean?" "I mean exactly what I said." Shining scratched her head, looking annoyed. "Although creating a plane is a little troublesome, didn't you help us before? We have to return a gift or something." They had to work right after eating. It was so tiring. You. The Godfiend's eyes widened even more. A hint of joy flashed across his face, but it immediately dimmed. "Don't joke around. Our plane has already returned to chaos. Don't tell me you can split the chaos again?" Before Shining could answer, the three people behind her reacted and spoke first. Lone Moon, she can really do that. I Ching, definitely. Godfiend, of course. Lone Moon even went forward to pat him on the shoulder and gave him an unreadable look. Hong Meng, the fake Demon King, it can't be. So managers are actually this awesome? A while later, can you really return our plane to us? The fake Demon King could not help but step forward and ask excitedly. Shining was just about to nod. What's the use even if the plane can be rebuilt? Hong Meng laughed bitterly. The light that had just lit up in his eyes dimmed again. He looked even more hopeless. The millions of living beings in our world have already turned into nothingness. What's the point of rebuilding a land of death? The fake Demon King's expression darkened. The hope in his eyes disappeared instantly. "We can't come back anymore. What if we can?" Shining suddenly spoke. "What?" The two of them stiffened. Shining pointed directly at the sky. Starlight flashed around them. In an instant, the small world that was wrapped in a red cube box flew in front of everyone. "You've been here for so long. Didn't you notice anything wrong?" Everyone was stunned. Even Lone Moon and I Ching looked over with doubt. Shining sighed and directly enlarged the ball of light in front of her. She pointed to a fragment in the center and said, "That's yours, right?" The few of them were stunned. They looked carefully at the direction she was pointing at. The whole small world had actually been broken into millions of pieces. And the point that Shining pointed at seemed to be a lake. The lake water was so clear that the bottom could be seen. There was a small island in the center with a big tree full of red stripes. It looked a little familiar. "Isn't this the fertility tree?" Lone Moon was shocked. He remembered what happened before and directly blurted out, "This kind of feudal superstitious legend. What's so strange about?" Before he finished speaking, Chef directly interrupted him. "Under the tree." Chapter 365. Lone Moon was stunned. He looked down and saw that under the tree he could faintly see a purple glow. Tens of thousands of thin lines directly led downwards, and at the bottom of the tree roots, there was a purple spring-like thing that was faintly glowing. "Original source purple chi," Meng Hong exclaimed. "Why is our original source purple chi?" "No, that's not right. This is not original source purple chi. The original purple chi was the source of their power. It was formed at the beginning of their plane's birth. It was the purest power, but it was only a faint wisp of purple chi. But here there was a purple spring. The aura was the same as the purple chi, but it was much thicker than theirs. What exactly was this? Everyone turned to look at the Godfiend. The Godfiend paused. After a while he nodded. "I did hide your original source purple chi in this outer realm. After all, the most dangerous place is the safest." Hong Yu clenched his fists. He was even angrier. No wonder they could not find the original source purple chi after so much effort to escape from the outer realm. It was hidden right under their noses. But the Godfiend looked at the purple spring under the tree. "I don't know why it became like this. Chef." Lone Moon nudged I Ching. Don't you think this spring water is a bit like the spring of life from last time? Yiqing reacted. He immediately understood what Shining meant. No wonder it was a child-wishing tree. What spring of life? Hongmeng paused. Lone Moon exchanged a look with Yiqing. Then he explained, this outer realm was originally sealed outside the 3,000 worlds. Even the river of forgetfulness does not flow through here. Logically speaking, there should not be any living beings here. But this place is filled with cultivators. They can even cultivate immortal power. Have you ever thought of the reason? Hongmeng and Yiqing were stunned. You mean, they came from this purple spring? That should be the case. Lone Moon nodded. That was why the locals thought that the tree on the purple spring was a child-wishing tree. This might not be a superstition. This tree could really have children. Just like the spring of life in the other world, there were endless demon beasts crawling out. The life in this small world came from this purple spring. But what does this have to do with our plane? Hongmeng still did not understand. This purple spring is formed by the condensation of your original purple chi. It comes from your plane, and there is no river of forgetfulness soul fairy below. Without a soul, the light that could give birth to life would be like those demonic beasts that did not have spiritual intelligence. However, this world was different. The bottom of the spring can only connect to nothingness, and in the nothingness, the purple spring can only capture similar auras. You mean to say? The two of them widened their eyes in disbelief. Their bodies were so tense that they didn't even dare to breathe loudly. Yiqing then said word by word, everyone who is born in the outer realm comes from your original plane. The two of them immediately felt their legs go soft, and they directly sat down. Ecstasy instantly spread across their faces. The people in that small world were all from their own world. They came from the same place as them. They actually had more than 13 people left. And as long as that purple spring was around, their plane would one day completely return to them. The two's eyes faintly welled up with tears. Their hearts that had been cold in despair for many years suddenly seemed to be lit up with a ball of fire. They finally came back to life. Thinking of what happened before, they could not help but feel lucky. Luckily they did not destroy that small world for revenge. Luckily someone stopped them. The two of them exchanged a look. Suddenly they stood up and retreated to one side. They bowed to Shining and the others seriously. Thank you. They seemed to want to say something, but after a while they could not make a sound. They did not know what to say. You can thank me later. Go in and take out the purple spring. Lone Moon pushed Shining. You have to let it return to your original plane. Shining directly waved her hand and opened a passage to that half-collapsed small world. Okay. The two of them nodded. Then, with a face full of excitement and even a little unsteady on their feet, they quickly walked inside and disappeared without a trace in a moment. Shining then turned to look at a certain person beside her. Now, can you tell me the truth? The god fiend stiffened. He looked at her with some surprise. After a while, his whole body relaxed as if he had finally removed some disguise. He bent down and smiled at her. You're indeed boss. I can't hide anything from you. What do you mean? Lone Moon was stunned. Could it be that there's some trap in this plane that you haven't told me? No. The god fiend hurriedly shook his hand. I promise there's really no more. How would I dare? He smiled even more brightly, but his body swayed. His whole body seemed to be unable to support himself and he fell down. Yiqing reached out to help him, but he still sat directly on the ground. Even his body was emitting a faint light, as if he was going to disappear in the next moment. Holy shit, what's wrong with you? Lone Moon was shocked. He subconsciously conjured a seal, but it was completely useless. The god power in his body was dissipating. If this continued, he would die. How did this happen? Did Hongmeng and the others hurt you? No. The god fiend shook his head. He did not care at all. It was as if he was not welcoming death, but rebirth. It's just that time is up. He smiled even more happily. It was different from the polite fake smile in the past. Now it was a genuine smile. I was going to leave long ago, but if I didn't solve their problem, I would always be a little worried. Fortunately, we have the best manager. Xinying's eyes darkened. She directly squatted down beside him and glanced at him. Why didn't you tell the truth? Why did you purposely make people hate you? I had no other way. He shook his head. They don't belong to this world in the first place. If I didn't isolate them in the outer realm, they would definitely be repelled by the plane after a long time. Then they would really disappear completely. That was why they made that small world cut off the plane connection. Then what about the purple gas? If isolating people in the outer realm was to avoid being repelled by the plane, what was the point of taking away their power? I heard Kai Tian say that all living beings originate from the plane source, he said softly. Their power is also the plane source, so I wanted to take a gamble on their behalf. The facts have proven that I won the gamble. After so many years, the purple gas finally turned into the purple spring. Lone Moon frowned. He suddenly could not understand the God Fiend. In other words, everything he did was actually to help those people. Then why didn't you tell them directly? Because they won't be able to live. The God Fiend was still smiling. They're like me. They were born for their own plane. If they knew that their plane was gone, I would probably go crazy. If hating me can let them live, isn't that good? At the end of the day, I am the one who owes them. So you're deliberately looking for trouble? She tilted her head. Ha ha ha. He laughed out loud. I'm waiting for you, boss. I can't return the plane to them, but the manager can. They're all good people. If they disappear just like that, it would be such a pity. Chapter 366. The three of them fell silent. They did not know what to say. As the ancient god of creation of this world, he had indeed done his best. Shen Jing had said before that they were the remnants of a turbid consciousness. One day they would disappear. And now it was time for him to disappear. Shining, is there no way for him to reload? Lone Moon could not help but ask. Shining did not speak. But the God Fiend shook his head. There's no need. I'm just tired. It's time to rest. What other wishes do you have? Shining asked. He smiled. After a while he said, Boss, if possible, can you forgive Shorty? She's different from me. She's the spirit of the river of forgetfulness. As long as the river of forgetfulness exists, she will not disappear. I forced her to do what she did the last time. Out of the three of us, she's the only one left. If you ignore her, she'll be too lonely. All right. He smiled even more happily. The smile on his lips did not disappear. Thank you, boss. With that, his body completely disappeared in front of the three of them. He turned into thousands of sparkles and scattered. They were like the light spots of the 3,000 worlds around them. Xinying's eyes darkened. She could not help but reach out her hand. Immediately, the surrounding light spots gathered in her palm. In a short while, they formed a ball of light and landed on her hand. The next moment, the air twisted. Mengpa suddenly appeared in the divine realm. She had rushed over and was still panting. As if she had already sensed something, she looked at the three of them in a daze. Sect Master, Shining handed the ball of light over. Send him on his last journey. Mengpa was stunned. She looked at the soul in Xinying's hand. After a while, she received it with trembling hands. She held it carefully with both hands. After a while, she said, All right. Although she knew that this day would come sooner or later, she did not expect it to be so soon. Among the three of them, he was the one who wanted to find a manager the most. She turned and was about to return to the underworld when Shining suddenly said, Oh yes, after sending him off, go back to Invincible Sect. Roasted chicken gal misses you. She stiffened. Her eyes were faintly wet. After a while she nodded. Yes. Then she disappeared from the divine realm. The three of them looked in the direction that Shorty disappeared in. Shining. Only then did Lone Moon ask. That soul is... The three ancient gods were remnants of turbid consciousnesses. By right they could not be reincarnated. If they disappeared, they would disappear forever. I used the last of his aura to transform his soul, Shining explained. Lone Moon nodded and sighed. Ever since the birth of the demon god, he had been working hard for this plane. Now that he could finally rest and have the chance to reincarnate as an ordinary person, that was probably what he wanted. He once again looked in the direction where Mengpa had disappeared. However, even if she had reincarnated, the God Fiend was no longer the same God Fiend. Hong Meng's speed was very fast, perhaps because he could return to the dimension. In less than an hour, he returned from the small world with an excited look on his face. His hands were still carefully holding Wang Zichuan. As manager, we're done. The way he looked at Shining had long lost the bone-deep hatred in his eyes. It was filled with reverence and excitement. Oh. Shining nodded. What should we do next? Shining thought about it but did not answer. Lone Moon answered, Let's wake the people on the ground first. With that said, he pointed to the 11 people on the ground who had not woken up and gave I Ching a look. I Ching nodded. The two of them walked towards those people, one on the left and one on the right. Hong Meng was stunned. Only then did he remember that those people on the ground were his own people. He hurried over to help. Yes. Those people were beaten by Shining. Naturally, their injuries were more serious. But Lone Moon and I Ching were assistants after all. What's more, they were in this plane. They helped to regulate their breathing. Those people finally woke up. It was just that they might not be able to use sorcery for a year and a half. Lone Moon saw that most of them had woken up. Hong Meng also explained to them one by one. Then he nudged a certain person who was chewing on her fruit. You can begin. Shining then stood up lazily. How troublesome. She directly brought up a light screen and operated it. Instantly, an array formation appeared on the ground. Shining gestured for Hong Meng to stand on it. In the next moment, a data frame popped up beside her. It was filled with the other party's data. Shining looked through it carefully. Then she nodded. It's done. She located the other party's original plane position. Then she raised her hand and drew a line in the air. Immediately, a plane passage appeared in front of everyone. But different from the previous white passage, this plane passage was black. There were also waves of unfamiliar aura coming from it. Let's go. Shining waved her hand and walked in first. Everyone was delighted. Without thinking much, they hurried to follow her. Lone Moon's heart tightened. For some reason he had a bad premonition. Reflexively, he set up a few layers of defense arrays for himself. Then he walked in. Everyone felt their eyes darken. In the next moment, they were in a dark and empty place. There was nothing around them, including the ground. The few of them were not prepared. The sudden weightlessness caused them to crash into a pile. Their injuries that had just healed split open again. From time to time, they let out a series of cries of pain. More importantly, there was a lot of turbulence in the void. It directly surged towards them. When the few of them wanted to defend themselves, they were held back by their companions beside them. They could not even stand up. The scene was instantly chaotic. It was as embarrassing as one could imagine. Except for Shining and her disciple who came in first, and Lone Moon who was the last. Ah, I forgot that your plane has already turned into nothingness. Shining, who was not at all affected by the turbulence, scratched her head innocently. Lone Moon, who had set up a defense array in advance, pursed his lips. Indeed, after being tricked so many times, he gained experience. He turned to look at the pile of people on the ground. His eyes darkened, but he still did not say anything. Shining was obviously doing this on purpose. That god-fiend was unwilling to tell the truth even until his death. He probably did not intend to tell them at all. They could only respect his wishes. But he was still angry. No, it was our inconsiderate thinking. Hong Meng did not think much about it. After some effort, the few of them who had fallen into a pile separated. They all took out their defensive Dharma artifacts to block the turbulence from all directions. Oh, then I'm going. Shining turned and handed the box containing the small world to Father Nyo. She took 2 steps forward and took a deep breath. Then she punched downwards. The few of them heard a cracking sound. A white crack appeared in the originally pitch-black land of nothingness. It was as if the void had been smashed into pieces. The crack was very small. It was only about a meter wide. But it was especially obvious. Shining dusted her hands and stood up. Then she stepped onto the crack. Everyone could only hear a series of crisp cracking sounds. With every step she took, the crack became even wider. It was like a long wriggling snake, following her feet and extending into the distance. The surroundings of the crack also extended in all directions like a spider web. The originally empty land was like a curtain being pulled back. There was an earth-shattering change. In the originally chaotic land, clear chi began to rise and turbid chi began to sink. Substance slowly appeared under everyone's feet. Heaven and earth began to form. Chapter 367. Everyone fell silent, looking at this unbelievable scene in front of them. Even Lone Moon and I Ching were stunned. Although they already knew that Shining was a cheat, they were still shocked to see her actually splitting open the void and splitting open the sky and earth. This was different from splitting open a small world, this was an entire plane. He suddenly recalled that when Xinjing objected to her taking over the plane, she said that she completely had the ability to open a new plane. Now it seemed that it was indeed true. Was this the manager who surpassed the existence of the plane? For a moment, everyone was immersed in boundless shock. Until, so hungry. Shining suddenly stopped and turned to look at the few people behind her. Father Nyo, why don't I have a midnight snack first? Get lost. The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. Instantly his excited and shocked expression burst like a bubble. You freaking just walked 50 meters. I Ching, Hong Meng, everyone, she was indeed that foodie. Shining walked for a whole 8 hours before she completely split open the heaven and earth. Halfway through, she once requested to go on strike for more food. Fortunately, Chef had stock in his storage bag and kept serving tea and fruits beside her. Only then did a certain lazy person persist. It was clearly a shocking feat of splitting open the plane, but it made her feel like she was running a marathon. Now that the entire plane was basically formed, she no longer needed to continue walking along that opening crack. That crack would continue to spread and separate the heaven and earth, until the new plane was completely formed. She also completely merged that broken small world with this plane. After all, the living beings in that small world originally belonged to this plane. As for that purple spring, Hongmeng also chose to let it merge into the plane. In this way, the living beings of the plane could reproduce and live no matter where they were. One day, the living beings of the plane that were originally swallowed by the void could all return here. Hongmeng looked at the reborn plane in front of her, full of excitement. After returning here, the feeling of being pulled in her body completely disappeared. Her heart that had always been wandering suddenly had a sense of belonging. Even if there was nothing here now, just a bare world, but this was their home. Thank you. Hongmeng's eyes were filled with tears. He turned toward Shining and bowed down. Thank you, manager of the alternate world. The others followed suit and knelt down, their eyes filled with the same excitement. Oh. Shining waved her hand. It's nothing. You should be thanking me. Everyone. He really wasn't polite at all. Straight face, Lone Moon coughed and stepped forward. Your plane has just been reborn. Apart from a barren land, there is nothing else. They were immortals, but the immortal chi of this world had yet to be born. If you want to restore the plane to its former state, you'll have to rely on yourselves. We won't interfere. Yes, we know. Hongmeng nodded excitedly. Never in their wildest dreams did they imagine that they could return to this place. This was already very good. Also, the world of the outer realm has already merged with this plane. Lone Moon frowned and continued to explain, although they originally belonged to this plane, they were after all too deeply affected by the previous invaders. What's more, the plane has changed and the immortal chi has suddenly disappeared. They will probably cause some trouble. You have to be prepared. Hongmeng's expression darkened. He nodded. Those people had always lived in the outer realm and did not know that the plane had changed. Thank you for the reminder, fellow Taoist Lone Moon. We'll remember it. Lone Moon turned to look at the barren surroundings. After all, this was their plane. Helping them rebuild it was considered repaying their previous favor. It was not convenient for them to interfere with other matters. Now that we've returned the plane to you, we'll go back first. Hongmeng was stunned. The corner of his mouth moved. He exchanged a look with the others as if he did not know what to say. His eyes were no longer as gloomy as before. Other than sincere gratitude towards them, his eyes were filled with anticipation for the new plane. It was so bright that it was dazzling. Finally, the few of them bowed deeply towards them again. Thank you, the three of you, for the grace of rebirth. Lone Moon sighed. He did not stay any longer and directly returned to Invincible Sect with Shining and Chef. When they arrived, they realized that the sky was already bright. They had been very busy these few days. Shining directly fell asleep on the bed. The sound of her snoring could even be heard outside the house. Chef was afraid that they would disturb and wake Shining up. He directly meditated outside the house. Thinking of a certain someone's bad temper when she woke up, Lone Moon did not try to persuade her. He directly turned to find Yu Hong. Previously it was about Little Black. Now it was about the plane. They had been busy non-stop. Now they finally had time to re-understand the situation of Invincible Sect. After all, they had left for 3,000 years. In addition, it was Lan Hua, that child of wealth, who was in charge. It was time to check the accounts. He turned and flew in the direction of the main hall. He vaguely felt as if he had forgotten something but could not recall it at the moment. Forget it, it was not important. At this time in the divine realm, a certain radish finally woke up, looking at the empty starry sky. Motherf asterisk her. Ever since Hongmeng and the others left, the entire plane had completely stabilized. The plane alarm had not sounded for a long time. Shining finally lived a blissful life of idling and waiting. Apart from occasionally being arranged by Father Nyo to water the radish, there were no other tasks. Radish was only brought back from the divine realm after Lone Moon checked the accounts. These years, the output of immortal herbs in the sect was far from the expected requirements. It was obvious that a certain plant was slow in production. But what was gratifying was that the financial situation of the sect was not as serious as Lone Moon imagined. According to the character of a certain child of wealth, 3,000 years had passed. It was already very good that the sect was not so poor that it pawned the heavenly palace. He did not expect the situation to be the opposite. Not only did the sect's income not decrease, but there was even a small increase year by year. It was practically a miracle. "Boss Lan, what did you do?" He could not help but ask. Lan Hua was stunned. He directly rolled his eyes. "How would I know? Aren't the matters of the sect handled by Yu Hong and the rest these years?" Then I paid the rent." Lan Hua immediately raised his claws. His expression said, "Don't try to accuse me. If you don't believe me, ask Yu Hong." Lone Moon. Speaking of which, did he misunderstand something? All these years he had always been a tenant in the sect. And the kind that needed to work for free. Did you forget that you also have the cultivation of a demon king? Lone Moon silently closed the account book. He decided to continue this beautiful misunderstanding. From next month onwards the rent will be increased. Lan Hua. Is he even human? Lone Moon walked out of the main hall in a good mood. He had to say that Yu Hong did well. His teaching for so many years was not in vain. Although none of the disciples in the sect had become sword cultivators. But they could be considered to have received all his teachings. For all, he decided to give Yu Hong a big red packet. After all, she was going to marry Little Black soon. The gift money must not be small. Chapter 368. Yu Hong and Xiao He were about to get married. After the incident with Hong Meng, both of them realized their feelings for each other. Hence, Yu Hong relented and agreed to Xiao He's request. After confirming with both parties, Lone Moon decided to hold a dual cultivation ceremony for the two of them. When the news of their marriage spread out, people from all over the 10 Directions continent came to congratulate them. He didn't know if it was because the immortals and demons had been living in harmony for thousands of years, or if Black had been too high profile in his pursuit. Not only did it not cause any trouble, but many people also had a look on their faces. The two of them finally stopped messing around with each other. It could be said that they were celebrating together. Of course, except for the 10 sky fiends of the demon realm. Originally, they should have been the happiest when their demon king was no longer single. After all, they were the ones who had witnessed Xiao He's many years of heartbreaking pursuit. But they didn't expect that when Little Black took off his clothes, he took off his clothes as well. As soon as Yu Hong relented, he immediately left the people of the devil world behind, washed himself clean and planned to marry her. Furthermore, he refused to return to the position of Demon King because there was a new Demon King in the demon world. He was a man with a family now. How could he let work affect their relationship as a couple? He even added, "You devils without Tao companions don't understand." The 10 sky fiends vaguely felt that they had been stabbed with a knife. No matter how they tried to persuade them, they could not persuade them to go back. Seeing that the demons were without a leader, they had no choice but to seek help from Invincible Sect. "It's none of my business." Lan Hua looked at the 10 sky fiends that ran in front of him. "Why should I become a demon king? Among the demons, you are the only one with the cultivation of a demon king." The 10 Directions sky fiends wailed. Weren't they at their wits' end? "I'm not going." Lan Hua directly refused. He had just paid a year's rent before the price hike, and he hadn't even finished living there. Besides, now that Good Heart and the others had returned, he didn't even need to worry about the sect anymore. He didn't want to live such a good life. Why did he come to the devil realm to pick up the mess? Isn't it good to go to the back palace every day to get a free meal? The 10 sky demons were on the verge of tears. It was clearly the position of the strongest supreme being in the demon world. Why did they despise it so much when it came to them? Seeing that Lan Hua had made up his mind, no amount of persuasion worked. The few of them had no choice but to shamelessly beg Lone Moon. In any case, they don't care. "You married one of our demon kings, so you have to return one to them." Lone Moon was not angry. Instead, he kindly pointed out a path for the Sky Fiends. If they could not find Little Black, the former demon king, they could look for the former demon king. For example, a certain Tracheitis, with the surname Jean. As he spoke, he silently took out a map. Of course, it was the kind that required money. After emptying all the immortal stones in their pockets, the Sky Fiends left with the map in their hands doubtfully. Invincible Sect finally welcomed the day of Yu Hong and Little Black's dual cultivation ceremony. Perhaps it was because Yu Hong had managed the sect too well in recent years. All the 10 Directions continent's heavenly emperors were present. Moreover, all of them came to congratulate him with sincerity and even prepared lavish gifts. However, when they entered the main hall and saw a certain officiator leisurely nibbling on a fruit, they stumbled and almost fell to the ground. The 9 of them instantly blocked the entrance, unable to advance or retreat. High Goddess. Is identical. Were they seeing things? When did she come back? Why didn't they know anything about it? Hallucination. This must be a hallucination. Hey. Shining waved the fruit in her hand and greeted the crowd. Long time no see. Everyone trembled and looked at the person in front, Celestial Emperor I Ching behind her, and Lone Moon who was looking at some list at the side. Only then did they realize that it was true. The invincible sect master, that living ancestor, had returned. So scary. Suddenly they felt pain all over their bodies. Goddess. After all, they were all celestial emperors. They were stunned for a few seconds before they stepped forward and cupped their fists in greeting. Then they smiled stiffly at the other 2 to greet them. Emperors, please don't stand on ceremony. Lone Moon kept the list in his hand and smiled as he stepped forward to greet them. We haven't seen each other for many years. You look as good as ever. Today is a joyous day for our sect. There's no need to bow. Everyone please take a seat. As he spoke, he led everyone to sit down in the hall. His smile was like a spring breeze. He was so enthusiastic that the few of them forgot about the fear of a certain someone above them. Unconsciously, everyone sat down. The shock they felt when they saw Shining also eased a little. Looking at the exceptionally enthusiastic Lone Moon in front of them, they did not know why, but they felt as if something was about to go missing. Shining, on the other hand, continued to eat her fruit after greeting them. Her gaze swept across the 9 celestial emperors who were seated. To them, 3,000 years had passed. But to her, it had only been a few months. She still remembered these people. For example, the one on the right. Hey little bird. She tilted her head and looked at Wu Hong. Bird is here. You've put on weight. Wu Hong was just about to stand up when his legs gave way and he fell from his chair. He looked like he was about to cry. Exalted goddess, I really can't eat this. He had to lose weight when he got back. Immediately. She did not want to eat it. Seeing that he looked like he could not stand up, Shining kindly looked away and turned to Biao Ting. Spoon is here. You smell so good today. Did you bring a perfume pouch? Clang. Before she could finish speaking, another person fell to the ground. Exalted goddess. My skin is rough. I don't taste good at all. Shining, who just wanted to catch up, #my friends all seem to be calcium deficient #. Master, I made some pastries yesterday. If you're hungry, you can fill your stomach first. I Ching immediately placed a few plates of pastries on the side table. Indeed, he successfully attracted Xin Ying's attention. She gave up on catching up and focused on eating the pastries. Little Bird and Little Biao heaved a sigh of relief. Their eyes lit up and they looked at I Ching gratefully. So Celestial Emperor I Ching was such a good person. I Ching, who was used to feeding them. The Tao partners who held the dual cultivation ceremony were different from the couples in the mortal world. In the immortal world, dual cultivation required a life and death contract. But compared to the marriage in the mortal world, it was obviously much simpler. All they had to do was escort the bride, thank the master and form the contract. Because Little Black was going to marry into the Celestial Emperor, Yu Hong went to the demon world early in the morning to escort the bride. Because there were many immortals from all the continents, the scene was very lively. Shining and the others did not wait long in the main hall. In less than 2 plates of pastries, Little Black and Yu Hong came in. The 2 did not dress as complicated as they did on television. They were just dressed in red Dharma robes. They bowed to Shining and called her sect master. From now on, Little Black was a member of Invincible Sect. Next, they just had to go to the deed signing stage together and form the life and death contract. The deed signing stage was set up by the disciples of the sect a few days ago. As the eldest senior sister, Yu Hong was naturally loved and respected by all the disciples. The deed signing stage was very beautiful. It was surrounded by layers of fresh flowers. They were all rare immortal herbs. In the middle of the flowers, there were a few particularly eye-catching dandelions. One look and they knew who did it. But when the people of Invincible Sect saw it, their mouths twitched. Go. Lone Moon stepped aside and looked at the deed signing stage in front. The 2 of them nodded and flew up. They looked at each other and smiled at each other. Under everyone's witness, they clasped their hands and began to form a seal. The deed signing array under their feet lit up. Flowers rained down from the sky. A red contract seal appeared on their clasped hands. The contract seal was divided into two halves. Together they formed a heart lotus. They wanted to be of one heart forever, to live and die together. The seal on their palms became more and more complete. When the last stroke was completed, the contract seal was complete. Little Black was excited. He did not want to let go of Yu Hong's hand. "Madam?" He was about to say something when he felt the ground beneath him shake. His expression changed. "Be careful." He reflexively hugged Yu Hong and rolled on the ground. The next moment there was a loud rumble. The originally beautiful deed signing stage directly collapsed. The layers of celestial flowers on it withered in an instant. A gloomy aura shot up into the sky. The 9 heavens, which were usually clear and sunny all year round, instantly turned gloomy. Chapter 369. Everyone stared blankly at the dark aura that didn't dissipate. They were a little dazed. That aura didn't seem like demonic chi, nor did it seem like yin chi. It clearly looked gray, but it carried a dry heat, causing the surrounding air to feel like it was burning. Even the dense immortal chi showed signs of being pushed back. "What is this?" "Grievous energy." Lonman's expression darkened. He took a step forward. Only grievous energy could have such a contradictory aura. But grievous energy had always appeared in the souls of the underworld. Why would it suddenly appear in the immortal world? Just as he was thinking about it, the soaring grievous energy suddenly condensed into a ball. It turned and flew down at an extremely fast speed. Everywhere it passed, flowers withered and palaces were destroyed. It rushed straight in the direction of the main hall where Shining was. "Master." I Ching was shocked. He immediately summoned an immortal sword and was about to attack. Shining was one step ahead of him. She reached out and grabbed that ball of gray chi. Instantly they heard a shrill scream. It was extremely sharp and piercing with a hint of madness. That ball of chi began to writhe in Xin Ying's hand, but it could not break free. So the scream became even more piercing. Even the celestial emperors could not help but take a few steps back. Their expressions darkened. This sound seemed to be able to attack primordial spirits. Shining tilted her head and looked at Chef beside her. She asked seriously, "Can it be eaten?" I Ching stiffened and shook his head hard. "No." "Oh." Disappointment. I Ching hurriedly conjured a seal. Immediately, a seal flew out and formed a golden chain that locked that ball of chi in it. Shining then released her hand. But even so, the grievous energy did not stop. It kept attacking the surrounding seal. "Shining, Chef." Lone Moon flew over and glanced at them. Seeing that they were fine, he heaved a sigh of relief. He turned to look at that ball of aura. It really was grievous energy. It was so thick. What did it suffer when it was alive? It actually broke through the realm gate and came to the immortal world. He subconsciously released his divine perception and was shocked. There's a soul in this grievous energy. With so much grievous energy, it was a miracle that his soul was not devoured. He frowned again and glanced at Chef. "Bring him back first." Then he turned his head to look at the gloomy sky. He raised his hand and performed a wind spell, blowing away the hot air in the surroundings. Only then did the heavenly palace regain its clarity. Fortunately, Blackie and Yu Hong had already completed the deed. He was about to turn around and invite the immortals back to the main hall. "Everyone, Sect Master?" Before he could finish, Siyu suddenly exclaimed, "Senior Sister Yu Hong and the others have disappeared." "What?" Lone Moon was shocked. He turned to look at the deed signing stage, only to see that it was indeed empty. Little Black and Yu Hong were gone. Invincible Sect, Rear Hall. "I've searched the entire heavenly palace, but I couldn't find any trace of Little Black and Yu Hong." Lone Moon turned to look at Chef beside him. "The Devil Palace doesn't have it either." I Ching shook his head. Both of their expressions darkened. Yu Hong and Little Black seemed to have disappeared into thin air. There was no aura left at all. Lone Moon frowned and looked at the ball of grievous energy floating in the air. "Shining, you've been staring at it for so long. Did you find anything?" Shining paused in the act of biting a fruit. She tilted her head and said, It's a little hot." "Hot? You've been here for so long and you've only taken its temperature? Forget it. It looks like we can only ask this ball of grievous energy if we want to know where the two of them are." As he spoke, he conjured a seal and set up a defensive array around them. "Chef, open its seal." I Ching nodded. With a turn of his hand, the golden talisman surrounding the ball of grievous energy disappeared. The ball of grievous energy immediately expanded and spread in all directions. A humanoid figure appeared in the middle of it. The other party's soul was indeed there. Who exactly are you? Lone Moon asked in a low voice. The grievous energy did not answer. Instead, it let out a shrill cry that pierced the ears. It even rushed towards the two of them in a frenzy. However, it was blocked by the immortal chi around them and could not advance an inch. The grievous energy on its body is too strong. Its consciousness has already been devoured, I Ching said. Even if there's still a soul inside, it won't understand what you're asking. Lone Moon frowned. He looked at the gray figure that was rushing towards the two of them. Suddenly, he thought of something. He turned to I Ching and said, Chef, go to Qingyu and find little Shorty. I Ching was stunned. Immediately he understood what he meant. He turned and flew to the right. In a short while he returned with little Shorty. She was Meng Pe, who was in charge of the River of Forgetfulness. She knew the most about souls. Little Shorty, do you have a way to get rid of this grievous energy and let this soul regain its consciousness? Lone Moon pointed at the ball of grievous energy. Yes, I do. Little Shorty nodded. However, the grievous energy was born from his soul. Even if it disappears temporarily, as long as the grievous energy is not dispelled, it will still be born. I understand that. Finding Little Black in Yu Hong was more important. Get rid of it first. All right. She nodded and took a step forward. She reached out and grabbed the ball of grievous energy. In an instant, a gentle golden light appeared in her hand. The moment the light appeared, the grievous energy around the gray figure dissipated like snow. Not long after, the resentment in the surroundings disappeared completely, and a figure appeared in the center. It was a person wearing a green robe, and he looked to be less than 20 years old. He had a delicate face and he had a scholarly air about him. He did not look aggressive at all. The man opened his eyes. They still looked a little lost. His gaze shifted to little Shorty, who was still glowing with golden light in her hand. Instantly his face paled. His eyes bulged and he screamed, "Ghost?" He let out a cry of fear and with lightning speed, he ducked under the table and shivered, leaving only half of his buttocks outside. I Ching, Lone Moon, Meng Pe, what a lunatic. Who's the ghost here? Is he here to be funny? Even Xin Ying, who was munching on her fruit, was knocked by the ghost that had suddenly crawled under her table. The fruit in her hand fell to the ground with a grunt. She frowned and bent down to pick up the ball from under the table. She tossed it onto the table and picked up the fruit on the ground. The male ghost paused. He looked at the person in front of him, who was wiping the fruit off her body and was about to take a bite. Miss. Only then did he realize that ghosts did not need to eat. So, you're not a ghost? Of course we're not. Lone Moon frowned. He snatched the fruit from Xin Ying's hand and glared at her. Change another one. She did not even know how to wash it. How lazy was she? She threw the fruit back to I Ching and continued to look at the male ghost. You're the ghost. What? That's impossible. Clearly. The ghost was shocked. He subconsciously looked down at his own body. In the next moment he let out an even louder scream. He seemed to have received a huge shock. His eyes rolled back and his body swayed a few times. He looked like he was going to faint the next moment. He was a soul after all. There was no way he could faint. He could only scream as he floated around the rear hall like a spinning top. Fine, he's still a coward. Chapter 370. 5 minutes later. Am I dead? The ghost finally stopped screaming. He lay on the ground with a defeated look, accepting the fact that he was a ghost. Tell me, who exactly are you? Lone Moon stepped forward and scanned him from head to toe. Why did you come to the immortal realm and where did Little Black and Yu Hong go? What? The man's eyes widened. He was even more shocked than Lone Moon. This is the immortal realm. You're immortals. He quickly looked around as if only just realizing the immortal chi around him. His eyes widened in disbelief. Could it be that I ascended to heaven after I died? His eyes lit up, full of excitement and agitation. He did not look fake at all. Lone Moon frowned even deeper. He exchanged a look with I Ching. What was going on? This situation was not right. You don't know how you came to the immortal realm? The male ghost was stunned. He looked at them, no longer terrified. Instead, there was some respect in his eyes. Didn't immortals bring me up? Am I going to become an immortal in the future? The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. He had a lot to think about. Then why do you have so much resentment in your body? Resentment? He looked confused as if he did not know what Lone Moon was talking about. After a while, he cupped his fists and said, "This exalted immortal. I really do not know what you're talking about. What happened to me? Amnesia? It couldn't be." Lone Moon's expression darkened. I Ching stepped forward and asked, "Do you remember how you died?" He stared blankly for a moment, then his expression turned ugly. He seemed to be desperately trying to remember something. Even the resentment in his body seemed to be coming back. After a while he murmured, I don't know. Am I really dead? What was going on? Was he really a ghost with amnesia? But where did the resentment come from? What else do you remember? The man scratched his head. After a while he said in a low voice, "I only remember. My name is Song Ren. I'm from Qinghe province. I've been studying hard for 10 years. I'm preparing to enter the capital next year to take the exam." "You're not a cultivator." "What's a cultivator?" He looked confused. He really was a scholar. Well, looks like I won't be able to get anything out of him. However, he was just a mortal who had never cultivated before. How could he have such overwhelming resentment? He even crossed the realm gate directly to the immortal world. Most importantly, this ghost didn't even know how he died. How were they supposed to find out where Yu Hong and the others were? Sect Master Elders. Just as they were thinking about this, Siyu suddenly rushed in looking anxious. "What's wrong?" asked Lone Moon. "Yesterday, Elder, you asked me to guard the deed signing platform. Today there really was an accident." She frowned as if she didn't know how to explain. "There. Elder, you'll know once you follow me there." Lone Moon and I Ching exchanged a look. Pointing at the male ghost he said, "Shorty, look after this ghost. We'll be back soon." With that said, he turned and was about to leave when he paused and added, "And look after Shining." He had already lost 2 ghosts. He did not want to add another 3. "Yes, Elder." Shorty's eyes lit up and he nodded vigorously as if he had just won a prize. Lone Moon then walked out with I Ching. Meng Per immediately moved in front of Shining, her eyes shining. She looked like she was presenting a treasure to Shining. "Sect Master, I've grown something especially delicious these few days. Since Elder Chef is not around, would you like to try it?" As she spoke, she turned and took out a watermelon-sized sweet potato from her storage bag. Shining, could he fire her again? The deed signing platform was not far from the rear hall. Lone Moon and I Ching arrived in no time. The grievous chi that filled the sky earlier had now completely dissipated. All that was left in the air was a messy platform. But now there was another accident. Where the deed signing platform used to be, immortal chi was surging. Large amounts of immortal chi were gathering there, spiraling towards the center. It looked like it was about to solidify. Immortal Ascension Platform? Lone Moon paused, then immediately denied his own guess. "No, that's not right. The Immortal Ascension Platform only appeared when cultivators from the lower realm ascended to the upper realm. And its location was random. It could appear anywhere in the 10 continents, but it would never appear in the Heavenly Palace. The immortal chi here was too thick. It would affect the formation of the Immortal Ascension Platform." He took a closer look, then turned to I Ching and said, "Chef, don't you think that the direction in which the immortal chi is moving? It's the complete opposite of the Immortal Ascension Platform," I Ching said. The 2 of them were shocked. Lone Moon immediately turned to the person behind him and said, "See, you inform the disciples in the sect not to let anyone near here." Then he turned to I Ching and said, "Seal off this area. I'll go to the right." I Ching nodded and flew to the other side. The 2 of them conjured a seal and set up an array. Instantly, a wall of light lit up in both directions, forming a translucent circle. It directly surrounded the area where the immortal chi was gathering. After a while, the crazy gathering of immortal chi began to slow down. Lone Moon frowned. Indeed, that was the case. The Immortal Ascension Platform was formed by the gathering of immortal chi. But most of the immortal chi came from the tribulation lightning of the cultivators from the lower realm. So it was actually the immortal chi of the lower realm that broke through the realm gate. But the immortal chi here was the complete opposite. Instead, it was the immortal chi of the Heavenly Palace that was surging towards the center. He and I Ching sealed off this area completely. Only then did the immortal chi stop. The 2 of them exchanged a look and flew in. The strange thing was that the immortal chi inside was exceptionally thin. Moreover, it seemed to be decreasing. The 2 of them followed the direction in which the immortal chi was flowing. Only then did they realize that in the center, there was a crack the width of a finger. The crack was not big. If one did not look closely, they would not have noticed it. But the immortal chi in the surroundings was surging towards it. The realm gate. Lone Moon was shocked. This crack was obviously connected to the lower realm. That coward broke through the realm gate using grievous chi. But the realm gate should have closed immediately after he came up. Why was this one still here? It seemed like the immortal chi was gathering here. It probably flowed into the lower realm. He used his divine perception to scan the area. Indeed, there was a trace of burning grievous chi in the crack. No wonder the realm gate had not closed. Luckily he and Chef had sealed it. Otherwise, all the immortal chi in the heavenly palace would have been sucked in. It seemed like Little Black and Yu Hong had fallen into the lower realm. Chef, can you sense which small world this crack leads to? I Ching sensed it and shook his head. No. Too much immortal chi went in just now. This realm gate is already unstable. I can't be sure at all. Lone Moon's expression darkened. He waved his hand and conjured a seal, dispersing the grievous chi in the crack. Indeed, in the next moment the small realm gate closed automatically. Let's go. Let's go back and find Shining. They could not tell, but how could they not find out about the cheat? Chapter 371. In the rear hall. So troublesome. A certain Ning expressed that she did not want to work. Troublesome my ass. Hurry up. Lone Moon did not give her time to continue being lazy. He turned to Mengpa beside him. Little shorty, bring this coward to Samsara first. With that said, he picked up Shining and returned to the starry sky of the divine realm. Shining then opened a light screen lazily and began to search. In a short while, the stars in the sky enlarged in front of her eyes. A small world flew out from the center. This is the small world that the crack on the deed signing stage connects to? Lone Moon stepped forward and looked carefully at the ball of light. He saw that the ball was full of green, and there was only a trace of white chi around it. He frowned. Why is it a Dharma-ending world? In a small world like this, the spirit power was usually very thin. There were even fewer mortals with spirit roots. That was why it was very difficult to cultivate to become an immortal. There might not even be one in a billion years. Some of them even had their legacies cut off. There were no cultivators at all. The ghost that was full of grievance just now actually came from a small world like this. That surprised him. Forget it. Chef, you guys go and bring Yu Hong and Little Black back. That couple had fallen into a small world like this for a few days and still had not returned. Something must have happened to them. I Ching nodded. Come back early. Shining also patted his shoulder. Turning around, she said, I haven't watered radish today. Just as she was about to slip away, she was pulled back by a certain old father. Stop. Lone Moon directly pushed her towards I Ching. You go too. What ha? Chef's injuries have just recovered. You don't need to worry about going alone? Shining looked at I Ching and then at Father Nyo. Nodding seriously, she said, I trust Chef. Get lost. You're just freaking lazy, aren't you? Father Nyo, can I not go? So troublesome. The dual cultivation ceremony just ended. The sex matters are piling up. Yu Hong is not in the sect now. He turned his head and glanced at her. Why don't you stay and help her deliver the immortal artifacts to the Qingzhe continent, or go to the Cloud Sea continent to look for spirit beasts, or go to the various countries in the Bo Sea to set up a race? Shining stiffened. She turned around and grabbed Chef's hand. Little Red and Little Black are too worrisome. There are so many kidnappers nowadays. As the sect master, I have to get them back. Let's go, Chef. With that, she pulled I Ching and prepared to turn around. Wait. Father Nyo, don't stop me. I am a sect leader with principles. For all? Do you have any shame? The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. He threw a bag over. I'm not trying to stop you. Take the spirit stones with you. Don't say I'm not paying for your travel expenses. Spirit stones. Omega, find him and come back quickly. Don't delay. Yes, Father Nyo, no problem, Father Nyo. What should he do if he became even more worried? Was it too late to take back the spirit stones? In the blink of an eye, the master and disciple arrived at that small world. Just as Lone Moon said, the spirit chi in this small world was indeed thin. The aura in the air was mixed and full of secular chi. Even I Ching was not used to it. He frowned. They looked around. In order not to cause any unnecessary trouble, they appeared in a dense forest. Master, please wait for a moment. I'll look for Yu Hong and the rest's aura. I Ching handed a fruit to Shining out of habit. Then he conjured a seal with both hands and cast a detection spell. A burst of immortal chi exploded from his body and swept across the entire small world. In less than half a fruit's time he opened his eyes. He frowned and turned to look at Shining. Master, I sense the aura of demonic chi thousands of miles to the north of here. I think it should be Little Black. Shining narrowed her eyes. Where is the north? Chef pointed to the right. This way. Just as he was about to fly on his sword, Shining suddenly turned to the left. Then let's go this way. I Ching was stunned. Aren't we going to bring them back? Chef. Shining turned and patted his shoulder. Do you think they'll be all right? I Ching was stunned. Although he did not understand why she asked that, he still answered honestly. With Yu Hong and Little Black's cultivation, they'll be fine if they just fall into the lower realm. Then why do you think they didn't go back? I Ching was stunned. They're on their honeymoon. It's not good for us to go now. They had to wait for at least a month. They had to use up all their spirit stones before going. What is honeymoon? I Ching still did not understand. Honeymoon is. Shining tilted her head and thought for a moment before explaining. It's reasonable and legal. It means dual cultivation day and night. I Ching was stunned. Suddenly he seemed to understand something. His face turned red and he looked like he was about to emit smoke. Dual cultivation day and night? See, he subconsciously glanced at Shining. Something exploded in his mind. His nose felt hot and something was about to drip down. Do you understand? Understand, or not? Let's go. We'll go south. Shining pulled him up and walked. Master, this is north. A while later, that's right, Chef, did you sense any small animals in the forest? I Ching pressed his nose and answered, 36,957 beasts. All right, we'll pick the fattest one. Yes, Master, no problem, Master. Unfortunately, before the two of them could find the small animals, the space in front of them suddenly twisted and opened up a passage. Sect Master. Meng Pa walked out from inside with a bitter expression. Behind her was a thin string that was formed by sorcery. It pulled out a ball of gray air like a ball of yarn. This is Songren? I Ching looked at the ball of resentment in surprise. How did it get surrounded by resentment so quickly? Didn't Father Nyo ask you to bring him to reincarnate? Meng Po's face fell even more. Her eyes were full of guilt. She bowed to Shining and said, I did not do my job well. I don't know why, but once this ghost entered the underworld, the resentment in his body could not be removed no matter what. Instead, it kept increasing. As she spoke, she reached out to remove the resentment as if demonstrating. If the resentment is not removed, he cannot enter samsara. I helped him remove it a few times before, but I don't know why, even when we changed places, I could not remove it. Before she could finish speaking, the ball of resentment dissipated in the next moment. He turned back into that timid scholar. This is. He opened his eyes in confusion. When he saw Meng Pa holding the string, his face paled and a trace of fear flashed across his eyes. A moment later he seemed to recall something and patted his chest. It was a few immortals. Oh yes, didn't the immortals want to send me to samsara? Could this be the underworld? That's strange. What exactly are you? Meng Pa was also confused. She circled around the timid scholar. I clearly could not remove his resentment just now. Why did it work again when I pulled him back to Sect Master? There was actually a soul that could not enter the river of forgetfulness? I Ching frowned. He released his divine perception and scanned the ghost. Apart from being affected by the resentment, his soul body was weaker than before. He did not find anything strange about the other party. Master, he can't be an invader, right? No. Xinying's eyes narrowed. She glanced at the clearly dazed timid scholar before turning to Meng Pa. Little shorty, apart from you, what other way is there to remove the resentment? Chapter 372. There is, but it's more troublesome. Meng Pa thought about it and said, the grievance stems from the injustice he suffered before he died, so he developed a hatred for this world. Apart from forcibly removing it, we can only find out the cause of his death and untie the knot in his heart. Then the grievance will naturally disappear. How troublesome. The key was that this ghost had already forgotten how he died. How were they going to find out the cause of his death? Shining tilted her head and looked at I Ching. Why don't we just beat the grievance out of him? It was convenient and environmentally friendly. Master. I Ching frowned. His soul is already very weak. Even I can't take a punch from you. I'm afraid his soul will dissipate. Then what should we do? Why don't you do it instead? He claimed to be from Qinghe County. I Ching glanced at the ghost. Why don't we go take a look? Is there anything to eat? Since it's a county, there must be quite a number of people. Of course there is. They might even be able to get some food. Then what are we waiting for? Let's go. Yes, master. I Ching then turned to Mengpa and said, Shorty, go back first. Leave this ghost to us for now. Mengpa nodded. She turned her head to look at the coward who still had a blank expression on his face. Her figure flashed and disappeared before her eyes. Song Ren was shocked by Mengpo's sudden disappearance. His entire ghost subconsciously shrank. After a while he turned to look at I Ching. This exalted immortal, what did the two of you mean? What grievance? Do I have that horrible thing on me? He was not an unreasonable ghost. Hearing their conversation just now, the grievance in his body seemed to be very troublesome, causing him to be unable to reincarnate. Our trip this time is to find out why you have grievance in your body, I Ching explained. Don't worry, we will let you reincarnate. Song Ren nodded and hurriedly bowed to the two. Thank you, exalted immortals. What a polite ghost. Master, let's go. I Ching directly summoned his sword and pulled Shining onto it. Then he turned to look at a certain ghost. Song Ren was stunned. He knew that the immortal wanted him to get on the sword, so he floated over. Still acting like a polite scholar, he bowed once more. Immortal, please bring me along. Ah. Before he could finish his sentence, I Ching picked up a certain ghost and flew out. Song Ren was caught off guard and was instantly sent flying into the air. He subconsciously let out a blood-curdling scream, howling like a pig being slaughtered. I Ching, Shining, 10 minutes later, get off me. I Ching could not stand it any longer. He glared at the ghost that was coiled up in front of him like an octopus. No matter how scared he was, he had already flown for 10 minutes. That was enough. Exalted immortal. Song Ren's already pale face turned even paler. I'm afraid of heights. Weren't you just freaking floating? What are you not afraid of? I Ching frowned. He tore the ghost in front of him and held it in his hand. Show me the way. Song Ren had yet to recover from his shock. Which direction is the Qinghe County you live in? East? Southeast? I Ching paused for a moment before flying in the southeast direction. The few of them flew for another 15 minutes. During this time, screams could be heard incessantly. Finally, people appeared below them. They could vaguely see a village. The three of them finally landed on the ground. Song Ren was so scared that his face was completely white. He was a soul to begin with. Now he was even more transparent. He looked like he could turn into smoke and float away at any time. Yet, the moment he landed on the ground, he stubbornly stood up. He composed himself and cleared his throat. He cupped his fists and said to the two of them, "Excuse me." In an instant, he returned to his gentlemanly self. It was as if the person who had been screaming the whole way was not him. Of course, that was if his legs were not trembling. Left or right? I Ching pointed to the two paths in front of them. There should be a town ahead. There were too many mortals. Moreover, they had to figure out the direction and could not fly too high. To avoid unnecessary trouble, they could only come down and walk. Song Ren looked left and right. Suddenly, a hint of joy flashed across his eyes. He pointed to the path on the right and said, I recognize this place. Go this way. We'll reach Qinghe County in less than half an hour. Let's go. I Ching nodded. He turned and walked 2 steps. But he found that Shining did not move. Instead, she looked up to the right in a daze. Master. I Ching called out again. Shining then returned to her senses. She raised her hand and pointed to the sky. Chef, is the weather not good over there? Weather. I Ching hesitated. He subconsciously released his divine perception and swept to the right. His eyes widened. He saw that the sky above a town not far away was dark. The whole town seemed to be wrapped in black fog. Winds were raging. Ghost chi filled the sky. It was like a dead city. He was shocked. Apart from the underworld, this was the first time he had seen such a heavy yin chi. Master. Let's go. Shining nodded. Only then did he get on his sword again. He brought a person and a ghost with him and flew toward the city. In the blink of an eye, they arrived in front of the city. Up close, the yin chi was even heavier. The sky had been clear all along the way. But here it was dark and gloomy. The city was silent. Only the sound of the wind could be heard. The few of them looked up. Above the city gate there were 3 big words, Qinghe County. This was Qinghe County. I Ching frowned. He turned back to look at Song Ren, whose face was starting to turn pale again. He had some guesses in his heart. He took a step forward and walked into the city. Are we going in? Song Ren's voice trembled as he asked. His entire ghost body subconsciously moved closer to Shining. I Ching's face darkened. Thinking of the scene on the way here, he pulled Song Ren out and pushed him 3 feet away. Stay away from my master, little b****. Master, the yin chi here is thick. I'm afraid there's no one alive in the city. Not only that, there was so much ghost chi here. The ghosts inside were most likely malicious ghosts that did not enter the underworld. They had been staying in this ghost city. There are so many ghosts left in the human world. I'm afraid there's something strange in the city. Shining nodded. She threw away the fruit core in her hand and reached into Chef's pocket out of habit. We'll only know the exact reason when we go in. He looked at the city gate again. Master, the city is dark. Don't go too far away from me. Oh. I Ching was just about to continue walking into the city. After some thought, he turned around and grabbed Shin Ying's hand. Based on past experience, he was really afraid of losing her. Exalted immortal. Song Ren's face turned completely white. The city, don't tell me there are really ghosts? Did he forget what he was? You can stay here. I Ching instructed before turning around and walking into the city. He couldn't just leave a ghost city like this unattended. Song Ren looked at the two walking away. Then he looked around at the cold wind. Gritting his teeth, he had no choice but to follow. Once they entered the city, the yin chi around them became even thicker. Wisps of cold air seeped into their bones. Song Ren subconsciously shivered again. He looked at the two people in front of him who were calm and composed. It was as if they could not feel the cold wind. He hurriedly floated faster. Chapter 373. The city seemed to have gotten even darker. They could only hear the sound of the cold wind blowing. It was eerily quiet. The two sides of the dark street looked as if something would rush out at any time. The few of them walked along the dark main street for a while. Suddenly they heard a strange sound. It sounded like something was dripping. Drip, 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 one sound after another. What's that sound? Song Ren was shocked. He was so nervous that even his voice went up a few octaves. It sounds like water? Just as he finished speaking, a black shadow suddenly flew past them. Ah! Song Ren exclaimed. Trembling, he pointed in front of him and said, Someone's gone over. Only then did the two of them stop and look at the endless street in front of them. All they saw was a bloody light. Less than 10 meters in front of them, there was suddenly a liquid pouring down. The bright red color was particularly dazzling. Blood. 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 Song Ren's legs turned to jelly and he fell to the ground. The blood seemed to be flowing endlessly. It formed a wave and surged toward them. Everywhere it passed, there was a glaring red color, as if it was going to dye the entire street red. The scene was especially eerie and bloody. Coupled with the whistling cold wind, it was like a scene from a horror movie. There were less than 10 evil ghosts in the air holding buckets of blood and pouring it out. What's more, they were doing it in a row, relaying the force. They could even faintly hear a few words of ghost language. Hurry, hurry, it's about to dry up. Where's the bucket? Didn't you ask you to bring a bigger bucket? The Ripper ghost took the big bucket to wash the intestines. This is all we have. Hurry, 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 pour it out. Use the blood to drown them. Hurry up. Even if we can't drown them, we can scare them to death. And so, another wave of blood poured down. But the street was really too wide and they were a distance away from it. Although the blood was pouring quickly, it stopped before it reached their feet. Shining, I Ching. He suddenly felt a little tired for them. It's about time. Where's the headless ghost? It's your turn. I'm coming. An evil spirit with a green face and sharp fangs floated out from the pile of ghosts. It rubbed its horrifying ghostly face, opened its mouth to reveal a mouthful of bloody teeth, and directly reached out to take its head off. After thinking for a while, he felt that it wasn't scary enough, so he put his head back on, but this time he tore a hole in his neck. There was only a layer of bloody skin on his head, which seemed to be falling off. The bowl-sized wound on his neck was still spurting blood. Only then did it clear its throat, reveal its physical form, and float towards the two of them. A gloomy voice sounded in the air. Give me your life, the master and disciple duo. However, the ghost floated closer and closer. 2 streams of blood flowed from its broken head. It looked like it was about to pounce on Shining. I Ching sighed and was about to form a seal with one hand to capture this group of ghosts. Ghost? Suddenly Song Ren, who was at the side, let out a scream. As if he could not bear it any longer, he crawled up with a whoosh and ran towards I Ching's direction. He lifted the hem of Chef's robe and dived in. His hands subconsciously grabbed onto something, but he used too much force. With a swoosh, something was pulled out from Chef's waist. Shining, all the ghosts. His movement was too fast and too natural. Even I Ching didn't have time to react. He felt a chill in his lower body, and a strange object appeared between his feet. There was a strange silence. Even the headless ghost that was pouncing over was stunned. His head, which only had a layer of bloody skin, fell to the ground with a thud. What's going on? In the next moment, an aura even colder than the yin qi in the city exploded from Chef's body. The temperature in the city dropped as if winter had arrived. The entire street was covered in ice. Overwhelming sword qi swept across the entire ghost city in an instant. I Ching kicked a ghost that was lying on his pants out. A huge dragon formed from sword qi appeared in the sky. I'll kill you. All the ghosts in the ghost city felt an endless pressure. They fell to the ground and even their bodies looked like they were going to collapse. Chef. This was the first time Shining saw him go crazy. She was a beat slower than she should be. She grabbed him and said, calm down, calm down. Master, don't stop me. For the first time in his life, I Ching wanted to shake off Xin Ying's hand. Let me kill him. I have to kill him. I definitely have to kill him. Now. Put on your pants first, Shining reminded him. I Ching froze. Then, as if remembering something, he hurriedly bent down and pulled up his pants. With the fastest speed he had ever done in his life, he drew an isolation array around him and fastened his pants again. He even forcefully tied a few dead knots on them. Shining waited for a full 10 minutes before I Ching removed the array and appeared in front of her. His face seemed to be covered with a layer of ice, as if snowflakes were going to fall the next moment. But when he looked at Shining, his ears were so red that they looked like they were going to drip blood. Master. He could not help but sound like he was being wronged. Cough, don't worry. Shining coughed and patted his shoulder comfortingly. The sky was too dark. I really did not see your white underwear. Really? I Ching. He wanted to kill someone even more. What should he do? Perhaps because of Chef's sword qi, the yin qi in the ghost city had almost been blown away. Sunlight shone into the city. The yang qi was strong. The malicious ghosts that were originally hiding in the surroundings also showed their figures. Chef, who was finally held back by Shining and had not beaten Song Ren to death, glanced at the densely packed ghosts in front of him. His guess was right. This city was full of malicious ghosts and each one was worse than the other. Those that were missing an arm or a leg were still fine. Some of them were directly lying on the ground like a pile of mud. It was obvious how badly they died. Why do you stay in the human world? I Ching looked at the ghosts coldly. Why do you still gather in this city to harm people? Don't you want to reincarnate? The ghosts looked at each other. Thinking of the terrifying aura from before, they all trembled. A moment later, the headless ghost that wanted to scare them stood up weakly. This immortal. Exalted immortal, it's not that we don't want to reincarnate, but we can't go at all. That's right. Exalted immortal. The other ghosts all nodded. We also want to go to the underworld to reincarnate, but after we died, we have been trapped here and can't get out. We have no choice, so we want to find a living substitute to bring us out. Can't get out? I Ching was stunned. He used his divine perception to scan the city. There was no array formation to restrict them. What exactly happened in the city? I Ching looked around. There were so many ghosts and they looked like they had died not long ago. How did you die? A look of confusion flashed across the faces of the ghosts. A moment later they all shook their heads. We don't know either. When we woke up we were already ghosts. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.